Under the pulsing red emergency lights, Samuel Reeves knelt on the cold concrete floor, blood dripping from the wound in his shoulder. Before him stood a small metallic device on a pedestal, a nuclear weapon disguised as an ordinary piece of luggage. James Samuel's brother aimed a gun at his head while holding a strange glowing device in his other hand, the Eagle Key. 40 years, Sam, James said, voice steady despite the alarms blaring around them. Uncle Albert fooled all of us. This was never about ethics or the Constitution. This is about technology that isn't human. In the corner of the room, Kate struggled to stand, clutching her injured side. Her tactical gear was torn and bloodied, but her eyes remained sharp-focused. "They won't stop Samuel," she whispered. "Not for the weapon, for the truth." The facility shuddered as another explosion rocked the lower levels. The self-destruct sequence was well underway. Concrete dust filtered down from the ceiling like toxic snow. Samuel stared directly into his brother's eyes. "Make your choice, James. Protect Dad's legacy or protect humanity." James's finger tightened on the trigger. "You don't understand what's at stake." 8 months earlier, the fluorescent light flickered overhead, casting uneven shadows across the empty high school hallway. Samuel Reeves moved with practiced efficiency, his mop gliding across the linoleum in perfect methodical strokes. At 48, his weathered hands bore the calluses of manual labor, but his eyes, alert, analytical, betrayed a different history. Raucous laughter erupted from around the corner. 5 varsity football players burst into the corridor, tracking mud across Samuel's pristine floor. Their Letterman jackets declared their status at Liberty High. "Hey, Mr. Clean," the tallest one called out. "We left you a little present in the locker room." Samuel said nothing, his face impassive as they passed. Only when they were gone did he allow a small sigh to escape. He reached into his pocket, fingering a well-worn chess piece, a knight its edges smoothed by years of nervous handling. A door opened at the far end of the hall. Principal Garfield emerged, checking his watch with annoyance. "Reeves, the teacher's lounge needs attention. Coffee spill." He didn't wait for a response. "Yes, sir." Samuel's voice was quiet, measured a habit from a different life. The teacher's lounge was empty, save for a young history teacher, Diane Cooper, grading papers. She smiled as Samuel entered, one of the few who acknowledged him as more than furniture. "Sorry about the mess," she said, gesturing to the spilled coffee. "I tried to clean it up." "No need, Miss Cooper." Samuel began working on the stain. Diane tapped her pen against a stack of papers. "My students are doing Cold War projects this semester. Any insights from someone who lived through it?" A shadow crossed Samuel's face. "Just the usual. 2 superpowers, mutual destruction. History books cover it well enough." She studied him for a moment. "You know you don't talk like a janitor, Mr. Reeves." Samuel's mop stopped moving for a fraction of a second before resuming its rhythm. "Not sure how janitors are supposed to talk, ma'am." "Fair enough." She gathered her papers with a smile. "Have a good evening." After she left, Samuel glanced at the history textbook she'd left behind. Its chapter on Cold War intelligence operations showed a U-2 spy plane. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Samuel's apartment was sparse, functional, a monk's cell arranged with military precision. Books lined the walls, many in Russian and German. A chess set sat positioned in the middle of a complex game. On the refrigerator, mathematical formulas were held by alphabet magnets. The television played quietly in the background, a news report about escalating tensions in Eastern Europe. He retrieved his mail, flipping through bills until he reached an official envelope from Harrison and Weber law offices. Inside was a formal letter informing him of his uncle Albert Reeves' death and an unexpected inheritance, the old Reeves farmhouse outside town. Samuel stared at the letter, specifically at a handwritten note in the margin. "Operation Iron Gate remains active. Find the Eagle." His phone rang, jarring him from his thoughts. The caller ID read James Reeves. "Hello, James." "Sam," his brother's voice was crisp, professional. "I just got the notification about Uncle Albert's property. Ridiculous that they still consider that dump an asset. You've heard from the lawyers too, then?" "I'm flying in tomorrow. We need to sell that property immediately. The land might be worth something to developers." Samuel's eyes returned to the handwritten note. "I think I'll hold off on any decisions until I see the place." Silence stretched across the line. "That's unwise, Sam. That house has been abandoned for 40 years. It's probably structurally unsound, filled with black mold. Nevertheless, I'll look at it first." James sighed. I forgot how stubborn you can be. Fine. I'll meet you there tomorrow. 2 o'clock. After hanging up, Samuel moved to his closet, pushing aside clothes to reveal a small safe. Inside was a service pistol, a Beretta M9 meticulously maintained, and a worn NSA identification card. The photo showed a younger, confident Samuel in a suit. He stared at it briefly, memories flooding back. He remembered the Belarus operation, the encoded transmissions. He'd intercepted the pattern that no one else could see. His analysis had indicated Russian military personnel selling nuclear materials to non-state actors. The operation was greenlit based on his intelligence, but something went wrong. 3 agents compromised, 1 killed. The internal investigation concluded his analysis was flawed. Career over. Reputation destroyed. Samuel closed the safe, his mind returning to the present. From a different drawer, he retrieved a folded map of the county and located the old Reeves farmhouse 10 miles outside town limits. Dawn painted the sky in bands of orange and gold as Samuel's battered Ford pickup rattled down the gravel drive to the Reeves farmhouse. The 2-story colonial sat like a forgotten sentinel, its white paint peeling, windows boarded, surrounded by untamed fields. Samuel parked and approached cautiously. The porch steps groaned under his weight. The front door, secured with a heavy padlock, bore an official county seal declaring the property condemned. Using the key provided by the lawyers, Samuel removed the padlock and pushed the door open. Dust motes danced in the beams of morning light, cutting through the gloom. The air smelled of abandonment and decay. Inside, sheets draped over furniture like ghosts. Samuel moved through the rooms, methodically assessing structural integrity, noting water damage, checking electrical fixtures. His inspection was thorough, systematic, not the curiosity of a new owner, but the careful assessment of a trained operative. What was once a study featured bookshelves lining the walls. Samuel ran his fingers along the spines. Technical manuals, engineering, text, volumes on aeronautics. He paused at a row of classics, Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, Chekhov, all in original Russian. A photograph on the desk caught his attention. It showed a younger Albert standing beside a U-2 spy plane, its distinctive silhouette unmistakable. Both men wore Air Force uniforms. On the bar, written in faded ink, Davis Monthan, 1962, The Eagle Flies High. Samuel's attention shifted to the bookcase itself. He noticed subtle wear patterns on the floor in front of it, suggesting frequent movement. Examining the case more closely, he found a small irregularity in the woodwork. When pressed, it clicked, and the entire bookcase swung outward, revealing a hidden room. The space beyond was small but purposeful. A desk held an antique typewriter. Maps covered the walls, detailed aeronautical charts of Cuba and the Soviet Union with handwritten notations. A large safe dominated one corner. Samuel approached the safe, examining its mechanism, an older combination model from the 1960s. He studied it carefully, noting wear patterns on the dial that suggested frequently used numbers. After several methodical attempts, the safe opened with a satisfying click. Inside lay a leather journal, a collection of microfilm canisters, and a strange metallic object, approximately the size of a softball. Samuel examined the object first, a spherical component made of an unusual silvery metal, heavier than its size would suggest, with Cyrillic markings etched on its surface. He opened the journal. The entries, written in a sophisticated alphanumeric code, began in 1962. Samuel's brow furrowed in concentration as he studied the patterns, his mind already working to decode them. A vehicle approaching outside broke his concentration. Samuel quickly photographed several pages of the journal with his phone pocketed, the strange metal sphere, and closed the safe. He just managed to swing the bookcase closed when the front door opened. "Sam!" James Reeves' voice echoed through the empty house. Samuel emerged from the study to greet his brother. James, 55, stood in the foyer, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, his silver hair perfectly styled. The contrast between the brothers was striking. "You're early," Samuel said. James surveyed the decay around them with distaste. "I had my driver bring me straight from the airport." He ran a finger along a dust-covered table. "Just as I thought, this place is a disaster. The structure is sound, mostly cosmetic damage." James shook his head. Always the optimist. "I've already contacted a real estate agent. We can list it by the end of the week." "I'm not selling." James froze, turning slowly to face his brother. "Don't be ridiculous. What would you possibly do with this mausoleum? Fix it up, maybe live here. On a janitor's salary? James laughed sharply. Be realistic, Sam. Your portion of the sale could set you up comfortably. You could move somewhere better. I like it here. James studied him, eyes narrowing slightly. This isn't about the house, is it? This is about Albert. Samuel said nothing. Albert abandoned this family 40 years ago, Sam. Whatever romantic notions you have about our mysterious uncle need to stop. He was a deserter, a disgrace. You don't know that. Everyone knows that he vanished during the height of the Cold War with classified information. The only reason he wasn't officially labeled a traitor is that they never found a body. James checked his watch. I have meetings in Washington tomorrow. The property is half mine. We're selling. Actually, Samuel retrieved the lawyer's letter. The will specifically leaves the property to me alone. You get the financial assets. James snatched the paper, reading quickly. His face hardened. This will never stand up in court. Perhaps not, but it will take years to resolve, during which time the property remains as is. The brothers stared at each other, decades of unspoken tension hanging between them. You're making a mistake, James finally said, just like you did at the NSA. Always bringing that up, aren't you? Someone has to remind you of reality. Your brilliant career ended scrubbing toilets because you couldn't admit when you were wrong. Samuel's expression remained neutral, a skill honed through years of interrogations. I need to lock up now. I have the night shift. James shook his head in disgust. I'll have my lawyers contact you. He strided out the door, slamming behind him. Alone again, Samuel returned to the hidden room. He examined the maps more carefully, noting the precise flight paths marked over Cuba. One location was circled repeatedly, a site near Bejucal, southwest of Havana. That evening in his apartment, Samuel spread the journal photographs across his table and began the process of decryption, jotting down patterns and frequency analyses on a notepad. The metal sphere sat on his desk, its surface catching the lamplight. Samuel examined it more closely, using a magnifying glass to study the Cyrillic markings. He typed the characters into a translation program, Isotope Prototype 7. Hours passed as Samuel worked on the journal. Patterns emerged, and sections of text became readable. It was a modified Vigenère cipher complex, but not impenetrable to someone with his training. The first decoded entry read, October 18, 1962, Iron Gate mission authorized. U-2 overflight of Cuba confirms Soviet missile installations. Additional mission parameters classified. We have contact established with Sparrow. God help us if this goes wrong. Samuel continued decoding, his face growing increasingly troubled. The journal detailed Albert's role as a U-2 pilot during the Cuban Missile Crisis, but with an unexpected twist, references to a covert mission beyond the acknowledged reconnaissance flights, something called Operation Iron Gate. A knock at his door interrupted his work. Samuel quickly covered the materials and checked the peephole. A woman stood in the hallway, mid-40s, professionally dressed with dark hair showing streaks of silver. He didn't recognize her. Samuel opened the door cautiously. Can I help you, Mr. Reeves? I'm Kate Morgan, the town librarian. She smiled, extending her hand. I heard you inherited Albert Reeves' property. I'm compiling local history, and that farmhouse has quite a story. Something in her posture, the way she stood, the careful positioning, triggered Samuel's operational instincts. This woman wasn't just a librarian. Her eyes scanned his apartment, assessing exits and vantage points, habits that never die. Town librarian visits the school janitor, Samuel said. People will talk. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. Let them. She noticed the covered materials on the table but didn't comment. I heard about your uncle in the farmhouse. News travels fast. Small town, she said, especially when James Reeves flies in on a private jet and meets with Sheriff Blackwood immediately after visiting you. Samuel's expression didn't change, but his mind raced. The sheriff... Kate moved closer. Something you should know about your uncle's property. Blackwood has taken an unusual interest in it over the years. Regular patrols turning away trespassers personally rather than sending deputies. Why would the sheriff care about an abandoned farmhouse? Exactly the question I've been asking. Kate hesitated. We haven't spoken before, Mr. Reeves, but I feel I should warn you. Whatever you found at that farmhouse, and I know you found something, be careful. Some Cold War secrets should stay buried. As she turned to leave, Samuel spoke. How did you know I found something? Kate paused at the door. Because Sheriff Blackwood just mobilized his deputies. They're heading to your apartment right now. As if on cue, the sound of vehicles pulling up outside reached them. Heavy boots on the stairs. Samuel moved quickly, gathering the journal photographs in metal sphere. He placed them in a waterproof bag and along with his service pistol in a small emergency kit always kept ready, another habit from his previous life. There's a service exit through the laundry room, he said, moving toward the back of the apartment. Kate caught his arm. Mr. Reeves, Samuel, they're already covering it, but I know another way. She led him to the window, sliding it open to reveal a fire escape rarely used by tenants. They exited just as pounding began on Samuel's front door. Sheriff's Department, open up. They descended quickly, reaching the alley behind the building. Kate led the way to a nondescript sedan parked 2 blocks over. Get in, she said, unlocking the doors. We don't have much time. As they drove away, Samuel studied the woman beside him. You're not the town librarian. Kate's eyes remained on the road, checking the rearview mirror for pursuers. No, I'm not. Who are you really? She took a sharp turn, putting distance between them and Samuel's apartment. NSA counterintelligence. My name is Kate Morgan, that part's true. And I think we need to have a conversation about your Uncle Albert and something called Operation Iron Gate. The sedan moved swiftly through the quiet streets of Russville, headlights cutting through the evening mist. Kate drove with precise control, taking seemingly random turns to ensure they weren't followed. Sheriff's Department doesn't mobilize that quickly for routine matters, Samuel observed, watching the side mirrors. How did you know they were coming? Kate kept her eyes on the road. I've been monitoring Blackwood's communications. When your brother left the farmhouse, he made a call. 20 minutes later, Blackwood issued orders to his deputies, quiet off radio. And you just happened to be listening in. A faint smile touched her lips. Nothing happens by chance in my line of work, Mr. Reeves, or in yours once upon a time. Samuel studied her profile, the sharp intelligence in her eyes, the disciplined posture. NSA counterintelligence. Investigating what exactly? For now, let's focus on not getting detained by a small-town sheriff with questionable motives. She turned on to a narrow road leading out of town. We need somewhere secure to talk, somewhere Blackwood wouldn't look. Samuel considered their options. The farmhouse is out. It'll be the first place they check. Agreed. Any suggestions? After a moment's thought, Samuel nodded. Liberty High. The school's security system is basic. I maintain it myself. We can access the library without triggering alarms. Kate raised an eyebrow. Breaking into a high school, not exactly spy novel territory. Sometimes the best hiding place is the most mundane. 20 minutes later, they pulled into a shopping center parking lot a quarter mile from the school. Kate killed the engine and turned to face Samuel. Before we continue, I need to know what you found at the farmhouse. Samuel weighed his options. This woman claimed to be NSA, but his experience with the agency had taught him caution. Still, she had warned him about the sheriff, possibly saved him from detention. A hidden room behind a bookcase, he finally said. Maps of Cuba from the 1960s. A journal in code. And this. He removed the metal sphere from his bag. Kate's eyes widened slightly. May I? Samuel handed it to her. She examined the object carefully, fingers tracing the Cyrillic markings. Isotope Prototype 7, she read. Soviet design, early 1960s. But it shouldn't be here on American soil. That's what I gathered from the journal entries I've decoded. My uncle was involved in something called Operation Iron Gate during the Cuban Missile Crisis. He recovered this from a facility near Bejukal. Kate returned the sphere, her expression grave. We need to see the rest of those journal entries. Let's go. They approached Liberty High from the athletic field, staying in the shadows. Samuel led them to a service entrance, producing a key from his pocket. Perks of the job, he said quietly, unlocking the door. Inside the school hallways were dark emergency lights casting weak pools of illumination. Their footsteps echoed on the linoleum as Samuel guided them toward the library. The room was spacious, lined with bookshelves and computer stations, moonlight filtering through tall windows. The microfiche archive is in the back, Samuel said, moving toward a section of specialized equipment. We can use it to examine newspaper records from 1962 to 63. They worked methodically, Samuel setting up the equipment while Kate kept watch. The library's computers provided additional research capabilities, allowing them to cross-reference information from the journal with declassified documents about the Cuban Missile Crisis. Samuel spread his photographs of the journal pages on a table, continuing his decryption work. It's a modified Vigenère cipher, complex, but with certain patterns I can identify. Kate leaned over his shoulder, studying the code. You were NSA cryptanalysis, weren't you, before Belarus? Samuel finished flatly. Yes. Kate seemed about to say more, but turned her attention to the journal instead. What have you decoded so far? Entries from October 1962, when the Cuban Missile Crisis was at its peak. Albert was flying U-2 reconnaissance missions over Cuba, but there's something else, a secondary mission called Iron Gate. He mentions a contact codenamed Sparrow and a facility near Bejukal. The Soviets had multiple missile sites in Cuba, Kate said, pulling up declassified maps on a computer. But Bejukal wasn't officially listed as one. Samuel nodded. According to these entries, it wasn't just a missile site, it was a research facility, something about isotope technology. They continued working, piecing together the puzzle from fragmentary information. Samuel decoded more journal entries while Kate searched for supporting documentation. November 2nd, 1962. Samuel read from a newly decoded section. Iron Gate Phase 2 complete. Recovered Soviet isotope prototype from Bejukal facility. Phoenix Division demanding immediate transfer. Refused. Phoenix Division. Kate's head snapped up. Are you certain that's what it says? Samuel showed her the decoded text. You recognize the name? Kate's expression darkened. It's why I'm here in Russville. Phoenix Division is a classified unit originally formed during the early Cold War. Officially, it was dissolved after the Soviet Union collapsed. Unofficially, she trailed off. It continued operating, Samuel finished, without proper oversight. Kate's voice was tight. 5 years ago, my mentor at NSA was tracking unusual financial patterns, black budget allocations disappearing into accounts that didn't officially exist. He found connections to something called Phoenix. 3 days after he reported it up the chain, he was found dead. Suicide officially. But you didn't believe that. His research disappeared. His death was rushed through review. When I tried to follow up, I hit classification barriers beyond my clearance. That's when I started my own investigation. Samuel continued decoding, revealing more entries. Phoenix Division wanted the technology for purposes beyond authorized parameters. Albert refused to hand it over and contacted Sparrow for an extraction protocol. A noise in the hallway froze them both. Samuel quickly gathered the materials while Kate moved to the door, drawing a concealed handgun from beneath her jacket. They listened intently as footsteps approached the beam of a flashlight visible through the crack under the door. Sheriff's Department, a gruff voice called out. Building surrounded. Come out with your hands up. Kate motioned to the rear of the library. Samuel nodded, understanding her plan without words. They moved silently between the bookshelves toward a fire exit at the back of the room. The library door opened slowly. Sheriff Blackwood stepped inside, service weapon drawn. School's closed, Reeves, he called to Walt. Why don't you come on out and explain why you're breaking in after hours? They reached the fire exit, but Samuel paused, holding up a hand in warning. Through the window, he could see deputies positioned outside. They were indeed surrounded. Those fellas from Washington are mighty interested in talking to you, Blackwood continued, moving between the tables. Something about national security, pretty important stuff for a janitor. The beam of light passed inches from their position. I know about the farmhouse, Reeves, about the hidden room and the safe. Question is, what did you take from it? Blackwood's radio crackled. Sheriff, we have movement at the south entrance. Copy that. Blackwood backed toward the door. Flush them out. As soon as the sheriff exited, Samuel moved quickly to the library's large windows. The lock was simple, and within seconds he'd opened it, revealing a narrow ledge 3 stories above the ground. You can't be serious, Kate whispered. Years of training take over, Samuel replied, swinging one leg over the sill. Coming, Kate shook her head but followed him onto the ledge. They edged along the building's exterior using drain pipes and architectural features to descend safely. They reached the ground just as flashlight beams converged on the library windows above. Samuel led Kate through the athletic fields to a maintenance shed where he kept a dirt bike for groundskeeping. The engine roared to life, and they sped across the football field, cutting through the fence at the far end. Behind them, shouts and the wail of police sirens filled the night. Ahead lay the dark mass of Oak Ridge Forest, and beyond that, the old Reeves farmhouse. The forest canopy blocked the moonlight, turning the narrow dirt path into a black tunnel. Samuel navigated by memory and instinct the dirt bike's headlight off to avoid detection. Kate held tightly to his waist, her body pressed against his back. They emerged at the rear of the Reeves property, approaching the farmhouse from the cover of overgrown fields. No vehicles were visible, but Samuel remained cautious, watching for movement or surveillance. "They'll come here," Kate said as they slipped inside through a back entrance. "We don't have much time." Inside the farmhouse, Samuel returned to the hidden room. Working by flashlight, he examined the aeronautical maps more carefully, looking for annotations that might provide additional information. Albert's journal mentioned a secondary cache, he said, scanning the materials. Something about an Eagle protocol if Phoenix tried to recover the technology. Kate examined the maps of Cuba, her flashlight beam highlighting the marked flight paths. These aren't standard reconnaissance routes. They're insertion vectors, paths designed to avoid radar detection. Albert wasn't just a pilot, Samuel realized. He was trained for covert operations. A notation on one map caught his attention, a small drawing of an eagle next to coordinates for a location in the Adirondack Mountains. The date beside it, December 5th, 1962, one day after the final journal entry. Samuel checked the study again, recalling the photograph of Albert beside the U-2 plane with its inscription, "The Eagle Flies High." The U-2's project name was Dragon Lady, but its distinctive silhouette with long wings and slender fuselage gave it an eagle-like appearance. "He's left us a trail of breadcrumbs," Samuel murmured. He searched the room for anything resembling an eagle. On the bookshelf, a classic copy of To Kill a Mockingbird stood out, a book about a different bird. Inside the front cover, a library card showed it was last checked out by Albert Reeves in December 1962. Samuel examined the book carefully, finding a sheet of paper pressed between the pages. It contained a series of numbers, a substitution cipher much simpler than the journal's code. Quickly decrypting it revealed Fallback Protocol Antique Pocket Watch, third floorboard from East Wall Blue Bedroom. "Upstairs," Samuel said, already moving toward the staircase. The blue bedroom was dusty and abandoned like the rest of the house. Samuel counted floorboards from the eastern wall, finding the third one loose. He pried it up, revealing a small metal box containing an antique pocket watch. The watch face featured an American Eagle emblem, and the case was engraved with the words, "Time reveals all secrets." The watch itself was unusual, the hands didn't move, and the dial positions marked strange intervals. When Samuel turned the crown, there was a clicking mechanism, unlike a normal timepiece. "It's not a watch," Kate said, examining it closely. "It's a specialized compass. These aren't time measurements. They're directional bearings." A noise downstairs froze them in place. Footsteps trying to be silent but betrayed by a creaking floorboard. Samuel extinguished his flashlight and drew his pistol, moving silently to a position by the door. Kate mirrored his actions on the opposite side, her weapon ready. The footsteps approached the stairs, then began ascending slowly. Samuel regulated his breathing, finger poised near the trigger. A shadow appeared in the doorway. "Samuel," a whispered voice. Samuel tensed, weapon raised, hands where I can see them. The figure stepped into the faint moonlight, filtering through the window, hands raised slightly. It was Diane Cooper, the history teacher from Liberty High. "Ms. Cooper." Samuel lowered his weapon slightly but remained alert. "What are you doing here?" "Following you," she replied, her eyes darting between Samuel and Kate. "When I heard about the commotion at the school, I got worried. Sheriff's Department has the whole town looking for you." "How did you find us?" Kate asked, suspicion evident in her voice. "You mentioned the farmhouse yesterday," Diane said to Samuel, "when you were cleaning the coffee spill. I took a chance." Why? Samuel studied her carefully, looking for signs of deception. Her posture seemed genuinely anxious, not threatening, but his years and intelligence had taught him that appearances could be deceiving. "We need to leave," Kate said, keeping her voice low. Now, whether she's telling the truth or not, others could follow her trail. "I can help," Diane offered quickly. "My car is parked a quarter-mile down the road. No one would suspect a high school teacher of harboring fugitives." Before they could respond, the distant sound of vehicles approaching reached them. Headlights swept across the front yard, illuminating the dusty windows. "Too late," Samuel said. "Back door, now." They moved quickly through the house, keeping low and away from windows. As they reached the kitchen, the front door burst open. Sheriff Blackwood's voice boomed through the house. "Reeves, we know you're in here. Come out peacefully and no one gets hurt." Samuel led them to the back door, easing it open slowly to avoid noise. The yard was dark, but he could make out the shapes of deputies moving around the perimeter of the property. "There's a storm cellar," he whispered. 50 yards from the house, hidden by overgrowth. "If we time it right, we can make it between patrols." They waited, watching the deputies' movements establish a pattern. When a gap appeared, Samuel signaled, and they slipped out into the darkness, staying low and moving quickly through the tall grass. The storm cellar doors were nearly invisible beneath years of vegetation. Samuel pulled them open, revealing a set of concrete steps descending into darkness. They entered quickly, pulling the doors closed behind them. The space below was damp and musty, cobwebs clinging to the low ceiling. Samuel's flashlight revealed shelves of ancient canned goods and emergency supplies. "We're trapped," Diane whispered, fear evident in her voice. "Not necessarily," Samuel replied, examining the far wall. Many of these old farmhouses had escape tunnels, remnants from Prohibition or earlier. He ran his hands along the rough concrete, searching for inconsistencies. Near the floor, his fingers found a groove, a seam, where the wall met an older foundation. "Help me with this," he said, positioning himself to push against a section of the wall. Kate joined him, and together they applied pressure. With a grinding sound, a section of the wall pivoted, revealing a narrow earthen tunnel. "I'll be damned," Kate murmured. Above them, they could hear the heavy footsteps of deputies searching the property, voices calling back and forth. It was only a matter of time before they found the cellar. "Ms. Cooper," Samuel said, turning to the teacher, "you should stay here, surrender when they find the cellar. Tell them we forced you to help us, then escaped on foot toward the highway." Diane shook her head. "They won't believe me. Blackwood knows I'm friendly with you. I'm coming with you." Samuel exchanged a glance with Kate, who gave a slight nod. "Stay close, then." They entered the tunnel, Samuel leading with the flashlight, Kate taking the rear position. The passage was cramped, forcing them to stoop as they moved forward. The air was stale, thick with decades of undisturbed dust. "Where does this lead?" Kate asked, her voice echoing slightly in the confined space. "If I had to guess, toward the creek that runs along the eastern property line," Samuel replied. These tunnels were often used by bootleggers to move product without being seen from the road. They continued in silence, the sounds of the search above fading behind them. After what seemed like an eternity of shuffling through the darkness, the tunnel began to slope upward. Finally, they reached what appeared to be a dead end. Samuel examined the earthen wall, carefully finding a series of rotting wooden slats that formed a crude ladder leading upward. He climbed cautiously, pushing against what felt like a wooden hatch. It gave way with surprising ease, revealing star-filled sky above. They emerged into a small clearing near the creek, concealed from the farmhouse by a rise in the terrain. In the distance, they could see flashlight beams sweeping the property as the search continued. "My car isn't far," Diane said, pointing toward a narrow dirt road visible through the trees. "We can—" She never finished the sentence. A sharp crack echoed through the night, and Diane stumbled forward, a look of surprise on her face. A dark stain spread across her shoulder. Samuel caught her as she fell, pulling her behind the cover of a large tree. Kate drew her weapon, scanning for the shooter. "Sniper," she whispered, "professional positioning, waiting for us to emerge." Diane's breathing was ragged, her face pale in the moonlight. I didn't know." "Save your strength," Samuel told her, examining the wound. The bullet had passed clean through her shoulder, missing vital organs, but causing significant blood loss. "Not the sheriff," Kate said, eyes still searching the darkness. "This is a professional hit. Phoenix." Samuel tore a strip from his shirt, creating a makeshift pressure bandage for Diane's wound. "We need to move. Can you walk?" Diane nodded weakly. "Try." They stayed low, using the creek bank for cover as they moved away from the farmhouse. No further shots came, but Samuel knew the sniper was likely repositioning, tracking their movement. "There," Kate pointed toward a gap in the trees where the dirt road was visible. "If we can reach that culvert, we can follow the drainage ditch to the road." They made their way slowly, supporting Diane between them. The teacher's face was growing paler, her steps increasingly unsteady. "Almost there," Samuel encouraged her. As they reached the culvert, the distinctive sound of a helicopter broke through the night rotors, chopping the air as it approached from the east. "That's not police," Kate said, recognizing the sound pattern. "Military grade, black ops." The situation was deteriorating rapidly. They were exposed with an injured civilian facing professional operators with superior equipment and tactical positioning. The watch, Samuel suddenly remembered. Albert's compass. The coordinates in the Adirondacks, that's where we need to go. Well, first we need to survive the night, Kate replied grimly. They helped Diane into the drainage culvert, a concrete pipe large enough to provide temporary shelter. Samuel checked her wound, applying fresh pressure to slow the bleeding. Stay with her, he told Kate. I'm going to create a diversion. Kate caught his arm. That's suicide. They want me, not you. If I draw them off, you can get Diane to safety, then make your way to the coordinates. I'm not leaving you to face them alone. This isn't a debate, Samuel said firmly. Diane needs medical attention, and someone needs to follow Albert's trail. They'll watch the isotope core they're part of, something bigger. Kate held his gaze for a long moment, then nodded reluctantly. How will you find us? Samuel smiled faintly. I was NSA's top analyst for a reason. I'll find you. He was about to move when the sound of the helicopter suddenly changed, the rhythmic chopping, replaced by a high-pitched whine followed by the unmistakable sound of an explosion. The night sky lit up as the aircraft plummeted toward the forest, trailing smoke and flame. Samuel and Kate exchanged shocked glances. What the hell? Kate whispered. Before they could process what was happening, the sound of gunfire erupted near the farmhouse. Not the measured shots of a police operation, but the rapid exchange of a firefight between professional forces. A figure appeared on the road, moving with purpose toward their position. Samuel raised his weapon, taking aim at the approaching silhouette. Samuel Reeves, the figure called out softly. Catherine Morgan Albert sent me. Samuel kept his weapon trained on the stranger. Identify yourself. The figure stepped closer, hands raised non-threateningly. It was a woman in her 60s with short silver hair and the weathered features of someone who spent considerable time outdoors. She wore tactical clothing and carried herself with military precision. My name is Laura Connor. I work with Sparrow. Kate's breath caught audibly. Sparrow Albert's contact from the Journal. The woman nodded. We've been monitoring Phoenix activity in this region since Albert's death triggered certain protocols. When they mobilized tonight, we intervened. You shot down a helicopter, Samuel said, incredulous. Electronic countermeasures, Laura corrected, disrupted their systems. They're fine, well-rattled and grounded, but alive. The firefight you hear is between Phoenix operatives and another interested party. Another party? Kate asked. Phoenix isn't the only organization with an interest in what Albert protected. Now we need to move. Your friend requires medical attention, and you two need to disappear before reinforcements arrive. Samuel hesitated, years of operational caution making him wary of this too convenient rescue. Laura seemed to sense his reluctance. Albert said you would need convincing. She pulled out an object identical to the pocket watch they had found. Eagle Protocol Authentication. The verification phrase is "Time reveals all secrets." It was the exact phrase engraved on their watch. Samuel lowered his weapon slightly. How do we know you're not Phoenix using information they've gathered about Albert's protocols? Laura smiled faintly. Because Phoenix would have simply killed you and taken what they wanted. We're here to help you complete what Albert started. A renewed burst of gunfire from the direction of the farmhouse emphasized the urgency of their situation. We don't have much choice, Kate said quietly. Samuel nodded. Lead the way. Laura guided them through the woods to a dirt road where an unmarked van waited, engine running. Two men with military bearing helped Diane into the vehicle, immediately attending to her wound with professional medical care. Where are you taking us? Samuel asked as they climbed aboard. Somewhere Phoenix can't find you, Laura replied. A secure facility where you can decode the rest of Albert's journal and understand what you're dealing with. As the van pulled away, Samuel caught a final glimpse of the farmhouse through the trees. Multiple vehicles surrounded it now, their emergency lights painting the night in alternating patterns of red and blue. The firefight had ended, but the tension in the air remained palpable. Samuel turned to Laura. Sparrow isn't a person, is it? It's an organization. Laura's expression revealed nothing. All in good time, Mr. Reeves. First, we need to get you safely away from here. Kate sat beside Samuel, her shoulder touching his, a silent acknowledgement of their shared predicament. She leaned closer, whispering, so only he could hear. Do we trust them? Samuel watched Laura speaking quietly with one of her operatives, their manner suggesting years of professional collaboration. There was something about their bearing that didn't match any intelligence organization he was familiar with. Not CIA, not military intelligence, not foreign services. For now, he whispered back, but keep your guard up. The van continued through the night, taking back roads and unmarked paths, moving steadily northward. Diane's conditions stabilized under the surprisingly advanced medical care provided by Laura's team. Hours into the journey, as dawn broke over the horizon, Laura approached Samuel and Kate with 2 cups of coffee. "We'll be arriving soon," she said, handing them the drinks. "Before we get there, there's something you should know." Samuel accepted the coffee but didn't drink. "I'm listening." "The organization you know as Phoenix Division isn't what you think it is," Laura said, her voice measured. "And what Albert discovered, what he protected all these years, goes far beyond Cold War politics or nuclear secrets." "What exactly are we dealing with?" Kate asked. Laura glanced out the window at the rising sun. "The truth about Operation Iron Gate, about the isotope technology, and about where it really came from." "The Soviet facility at Bejukal," Samuel suggested. Laura shook her head slowly. "No, Mr. Reeves, not the Soviets, not the Americans, not anyone from this planet." The van fell silent as the implication of her words sank in. Samuel and Kate exchanged glances, the same question in both their eyes. What had Albert Reeves really discovered 40 years ago? The van climbed steadily up a winding mountain road, tall pines crowding close on either side. Samuel watched through the window as civilization fell away, replaced by pristine wilderness. They had crossed into the Adirondack Mountains hours ago, following routes absent from most maps. Laura sat across from him, her weathered features impassive. Since her startling revelation about the non-terrestrial origin of the isotope technology, she had fallen silent, letting the implications hang in the air. "Not from this planet," Samuel finally said, breaking the silence. "You're suggesting alien technology." Laura's expression remained neutral. "I'm suggesting you keep an open mind until you see the evidence." In the rear of the van, Diane rested on a medical cot, her wound professionally treated with equipment that seemed too advanced for a field operation. Her color had improved, her breathing steady. Kate moved to sit beside Samuel, lowering her voice. "I've seen my share of classified operations, but nothing that would explain." She gestured vaguely toward Laura and her team. Samuel nodded slightly. The professionalism of Laura's team exceeded standard military or intelligence protocols. Their equipment, their coordination, even the medical care they provided, all suggested resources beyond conventional operations. The van slowed as they approached what appeared to be a solid rock face. Laura pressed a small device, and a section of the cliff face slid aside, revealing a tunnel large enough for the vehicle to enter. The hidden door closed behind them, plunging them into artificial lighting. "Welcome to Eagle's Nest," Laura said as the van stopped inside a large cavern that had been converted into a garage facility. One of Albert's contingency locations established in 1972. They exited the van, Samuel helping Kate support Diane. The teacher was conscious but weak, her eyes widening at the sight of the underground facility. "How is this possible?" she whispered. "Who funded this?" Laura led them through a security door into a larger complex. The facility was a marvel of engineering, carved into the living rock of the mountain with multiple levels connected by elevators and staircases. Modern technology blended seamlessly with older systems, suggesting decades of careful updates. Albert established several such facilities, Laura explained as they walked, funded through a complex network of shell companies and investments he created after leaving official service. He was preparing for this moment for over 40 years. "What moment?" Samuel asked. "When Phoenix would come for what he hid." Laura stopped before another security door, placing her hand on a biometric scanner. "And when someone would need to finish what he started." The door opened to reveal a medical bay that would have been at home in a cutting-edge research hospital. Two members of Laura's team, a man and woman in medical attire, approached to take charge of Diane. "She'll receive the best care possible," Laura assured them. "Now you two should rest. We'll talk more after you've had some time to recover." Samuel shook his head. "I've spent 15 years waiting for answers. I don't need rest. I need the truth." Laura studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Very well, this way." She led them to an elevator that descended deeper into the mountain. When the doors opened, they found themselves in what could only be described as a command center. Multiple workstations surrounded a central holographic display currently showing a topographical map of the surrounding mountain range. Several people worked at the stations, their focus intense. They acknowledged Laura with nods, but asked no questions about the newcomers. Who are these people? Kate asked, taking in the sophisticated equipment and professional atmosphere. Former intelligence officers, scientists, military personnel, individuals who, like Albert, recognized certain truths and chose to act on them. Laura approached the central display. Computer access, Iron Gate Archive authorization, Connor Eagle 7 Alpha. The display shifted, revealing a complex directory structure. Laura navigated through it with practiced ease, opening a file that projected a three-dimensional image of the metal sphere Samuel had found in Albert's safe. The isotope core, Laura said, one of three components required for the Winterhawk device to function. The other two being the activation mechanism Albert hid in the Adirondacks, which you now possess, and the device housing itself stored at a Phoenix facility in Nevada. Samuel removed the pocket watch from his pocket, studying it in the light of the holographic display. This is more than just a compass, isn't it? Laura nodded. It's a quantum-encoded activation key. The technology it contains is well beyond what should have existed in 1962. Because it's not human technology, Kate said, the skepticism evident in her voice. That's correct, Agent Morgan. Laura manipulated the display, bringing up a series of documents and photographs. What I'm about to share with you has been kept secret by various governments for decades. Albert was one of the few who pieced it together and documented the evidence. The displays showed a crash site, twisted metal scattered across a desert landscape. Military personnel surrounded the area, their uniforms identifying them as 1940s U.S. Army. Roswell, New Mexico, 1947, Samuel guessed. One of several incidents, Laura confirmed. Most were successfully contained and explained away, but the technology recovered from these sites was very real and very advanced. She swiped through more images, laboratory facilities, strange artifacts, scientific documents filled with equations and diagrams beyond conventional understanding. A secret division was formed to study and reverse engineer this technology. It operated outside normal military and intelligence structures, answerable only to a select group within the government. This was the original Phoenix Division. Kate crossed her arms, her expression still skeptical. If this is true, why haven't we heard about it? The NSA has oversight on virtually all classified operations. Because Phoenix went dark, Laura replied. In the early 1960s, during the height of the Cold War, they began operating completely off books. They developed technologies based on these non-terrestrial artifacts, including advanced power sources like the isotope core. Samuel thought back to the journal entries he had decoded. An Operation Iron Gate. Laura's expression darkened. That's where Albert comes in. He was selected for a mission during the Cuban Missile Crisis, officially to conduct high-altitude reconnaissance over Soviet missile sites in Cuba. But his true objective was to document a facility near Bejucal, where the Soviets were conducting their own research into recovered non-terrestrial technology. The Soviets had access to this technology too, Kate asked. Several nations did, all working in isolation, each believing they were the only ones. Laura brought up new images, the facility near Bejucal, surveillance photographs showing unusual equipment and security measures. What neither side realized was that they were being manipulated. Manipulated by whom? Samuel pressed. Laura hesitated, exchanging glances with one of her colleagues. That remains unclear. What is clear is that both American and Soviet scientists were being pushed toward developing weapons using this technology, weapons that could have escalated the Cold War into something far worse. The holographic display shifted to show a device schematic, a compact nuclear weapon with components unlike any conventional design. Winterhawk, Samuel said. Phoenix Division's crowning achievement, Laura confirmed. A miniaturized nuclear device with advanced delivery capabilities and a unique isotope signature that would appear Soviet in origin. A false flag weapon, Kate realized. Designed to be detonated on American soil but blamed on the Soviets. Precisely. It would have provided justification for a full-scale nuclear response. Millions would have died in the initial exchange, billions in the aftermath. Samuel's mind raced, connecting fragments of information from Albert's journal. But my uncle discovered the plot. Albert was tasked with retrieving the isotope core from Cuba, proof of Soviet advancement in this technology. But when he learned how Phoenix intended to use it, he made a different choice. Laura's voice carried a note of admiration. He went dark, taking the core and critical documentation with him. He was labeled a traitor, but in reality he may have saved more lives than anyone in history. The weight of this revelation settled over them. Samuel thought of the uncle he barely knew painted as a deserter and possible traitor who had actually prevented a global catastrophe. Why now? Kate asked. Why has Phoenix suddenly become active again after all these years? Because Albert maintained a dead man's switch, Laura explained. As long as he was alive and checking in regularly, certain information remained secured. His death triggered protocols that Phoenix has been monitoring for decades. Samuel leaned against a console, processing everything they'd learned. And my brother James, how does he fit into this? Laura's expression shifted subtly, a momentary hesitation that didn't escape Samuel's notice. Your brother's connection is complicated. I think you should see something else first. She led them to another section of the facility, a secure room requiring multiple authentication measures. Inside was what appeared to be a sophisticated laboratory centered around a sealed chamber containing a small crystalline object that emitted a faint blue glow. This is what Albert recovered from Sparrow in 1987, Laura said. A quantum computation matrix of non-terrestrial origin. It's the technology that makes the Eagle Key possible, that makes all our systems here possible. Samuel approached the chamber, studying the crystalline structure. And Sparrow, you still haven't explained who or what that is. Laura hesitated again. Sparrow isn't a who, it's a what, a designation for a source of information and technology that began appearing in the 1960s. Some believe it represents a faction among these non-terrestrial visitors, one opposed to providing weapons technology to humans. Kate moved closer to Samuel, her skepticism giving way to cautious curiosity. You're saying aliens were giving us technology, and then different aliens tried to stop it. I'm saying the situation is more complex than a simple visitation narrative, Laura replied carefully. The evidence suggests multiple agendas at work. Albert made contact with Sparrow in 1985 after tracking unusual energy signatures in this region. What he learned led him to implement the Eagle Protocol, a comprehensive contingency plan in case Phoenix ever reactivated Winterhawk. Samuel's mind was racing, trying to reconcile this extraordinary information with the uncle he thought he knew. And the farmhouse, the hidden room that was all part of this plan, the opening gambit, Laura confirmed. Albert knew that when he died, Phoenix would move to secure the isotope core. He wanted them to find it, but he also wanted you to find the other pieces of the puzzle. The journal, the Eagle Key, the coordinates leading here. Why me? Samuel asked the question that had been burning in his mind since this began. Laura's expression softened slightly. Because he trusted you. Because of who you are, what you were at the NSA. A brilliant analyst who chose principle over expediency, even at great personal cost. The reference to his NSA career. His disgrace over the Belarus operation caused Samuel to tense visibly. Kate noticed her hand moving briefly to touch his arm in a gesture of support. There's more you need to see, Laura said, leading them back to the command center. Computer access Albert Reeves' personal logs final entry. The holographic display shifted, showing a recorded video of an elderly man sitting at a desk. Samuel's breath caught. It was Albert, much older than in any photograph he had seen, but unmistakably his uncle. Samuel, the recording began. If you're watching this, then I'm gone and you've found your way to Eagle's Nest. I wish I could have told you everything in person, explained the choices I made, but secrecy was necessary. Phoenix has eyes and ears everywhere. Albert's recorded image leaned forward, his expression grave. What you've discovered, the isotope core, the Eagle Key, the Winterhawk project, is only part of a larger truth. A truth about your father, about Phoenix Division, and about what happened to your mother. Samuel froze, his attention riveted to the screen. Your father, James Reeves Sr., wasn't simply a member of Phoenix Division. He was its director during the critical years of the Cold War. The division formed from his conviction that American survival required capabilities beyond constitutional constraints or congressional oversight. The recording continued, Albert's voice steady despite the weight of his words. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, Phoenix leadership, including your father, advocated for a preemptive nuclear strike against Soviet assets. When overruled by the Kennedy administration, they began development of alternative capabilities, including Winterhawk. Samuel felt the blood drain from his face as Albert delivered the next revelation. The isotope technology was never stolen from Soviet facilities. It was developed within American black research programs designed with Soviet attribution signatures specifically for false flag operations. Your father personally authorized research using human test subjects, political prisoners, unregistered immigrants, individuals selected for experimental protocols without knowledge or consent. Kate's hand found Samuel's, squeezing it tightly as the revelations continued. I discovered these activities during routine intelligence assessment. When I confronted your father, he offered partnership rather than denial. History requires men willing to carry burdens others cannot, he told me. Sometimes darkness is necessary to preserve the light. Albert's recorded image sighed heavily. I feigned acceptance to gain operational access, documenting evidence while establishing countermeasures against their technological developments. The quantum technology you've encountered came through Sparrow, not an individual, but a collective entity with resources beyond conventional understanding. Their assistance proved crucial when Phoenix leadership discovered my true intentions. Samuel could barely breathe as Albert delivered the final blow. Your father ordered my elimination personally, his own brother sentenced to death for betraying organizational loyalty. When extraction proved successful, he redirected that rage toward my memory, poisoning your understanding of my actions, ensuring the Reeves family considered me traitor rather than whistleblower. The recording paused briefly as Albert seemed to gather himself. James Jr. followed his father's path from childhood, groomed a successor, indoctrinated into philosophical frameworks, justifying extra-constitutional operations as patriotic necessity. By the time you see this, he leads the organization his father built, continuing operations beyond oversight or accountability. Samuel's grip on Kate's hand tightened as Albert addressed the final truth. One final truth remains. Your mother's death was not the car accident reported officially. She discovered your father's activities threatened exposure. Phoenix assets implemented what they termed regrettable but necessary containment. I'm sorry for the weight this knowledge brings. Some truths destroy more than they heal, but you deserve to know why your path led here. The recording ended, leaving the command center in silence. Samuel stood motionless, the revelations washing over him in waves of shock and grief. Kate remained beside him, her presence an anchor in the storm of emotions. I need some air, Samuel finally said, his voice barely audible. Laura nodded. There's an observation deck on the upper level. I'll show you. They rode the elevator in silence, emerging onto a platform built into the mountainside. A transparent barrier protected against the elements while offering a panoramic view of the wilderness below. The afternoon sun bathed the forest in golden light, the world continuing its cycle oblivious to the shattering truths revealed within the mountain. Samuel moved to the edge, hands gripping the railing as he struggled to process everything he had learned. Kate stood beside him, giving him space but remaining close. Did you know, he finally asked Laura, who had remained by the elevator, about my mother? Not until recently, she admitted. Albert kept certain information compartmentalized even within Sparrow. He wanted to protect you from these truths until you were ready to hear them. Samuel laughed bitterly. Ready? How is anyone ever ready to learn their father murdered their mother and tried to kill their uncle? That their brother continues the family tradition of operating beyond the law? Laura had no answer for that. After a moment, she spoke softly. I'll leave you two alone. When you're ready, we have more to discuss about next steps. As the elevator doors closed behind her, Samuel finally allowed his composure to crack. His shoulders sagged, his breathing becoming ragged as decades of carefully constructed identity crumbled under the weight of revelation. Kate moved closer, her hand finding his shoulder. Samuel, Don't, he cut her off, his voice raw. Don't tell me you're sorry or that it will be okay. Nothing about this is okay. She withdrew her hand but didn't move away. You're right, it's not okay, it's monstrous. But you are not your father and you're not your brother. Samuel turned to look at her, seeing genuine concern in her eyes. How can you be so sure we share the same blood, the same name? Because I've seen your file, Kate said quietly. The real one, not the sanitized version they created after Belarus. I know what kind of analyst you were, what kind of man you are. And what kind is that? The kind who risked his career because he believed his analysis was correct and people were in danger. The kind who refused to bend even when it would have been easier. Kate's voice strengthened with conviction. The kind Albert trusted with this mission. Samuel turned back to the view, letting the mountain air fill his lungs. Why are you really here? Kate, NSA counterintelligence, doesn't typically assign field agents to small-town surveillance for years on end. Kate was silent for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice had changed softer, more personal than he had heard before. I was there, Samuel, in Belarus. He turned sharply, studying her face. What? Not on the ground team, she clarified. I was part of the support unit monitoring communications. I saw your analysis come in, watched it get routed through assessment, and I saw how it changed before it reached the field team. Samuel's heart pounded as implications crystallized. Changed how? Key elements altered, time frames shifted, contingency recommendations removed. Kate's expression was pained. Your analysis was correct. Someone higher up modified it deliberately to ensure the operation would fail. The revelation hit Samuel like a physical blow. After 15 years believing he had made a critical error that cost lives, to learn he had been right all along and sabotaged. Why didn't you say something? He demanded, anger rising. During the investigation, the hearings, Kate's eyes dropped. I tried at first, filed a report noting the discrepancies. The next day, I was called in by Deputy Director Harris himself. He explained that pursuing this line of inquiry would be detrimental to national security and my career. Her voice became barely audible. I was a junior agent. I had student loans, a mother with medical bills. I backed down. You let them destroy me. The accusation hung in the air between them. Yes. Kate met his gaze directly, offering no excuses. It's been the regret of my life. When I later began investigating financial irregularities that led to Phoenix, I realized the connection. Your case wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a pattern of eliminating analysts who might discover Phoenix operations. Samuel turned away, struggling with this new betrayal layered atop the others. The one person he had begun to trust in this nightmare had been complicit in his downfall. Samuel, Kate moved to face him again. I requested this assignment when I saw your name in the file, not just for the mission, but because I owed you the truth. I owed you a chance to clear your name. 15 years too late. Yes, she agreed simply. Too late to undo the damage, but not too late to make it right. Not too late to finish what Albert started. Samuel stared out at the mountains, weighing her words against the magnitude of deception he had uncovered. His entire life had been shaped by lies. His father's legacy, his mother's death, his own professional disgrace. Now the woman who might have saved him from that disgrace was asking for his trust. Deputy Director Harris, he said finally. You mentioned him specifically. Kate nodded. He's now Director Harris, head of the NSA. And his connection to Phoenix, Ren. That's what I was investigating when Albert died. Financial trails, unusual operational approvals, classification barriers beyond normal protocols. All pointing to Harris having deep connections within Phoenix, possibly leadership. Samuel processed this information, the analyst in him assembling pieces into a coherent picture. So the NSA director is Phoenix. My brother is Phoenix. How deep does this go? That's what we need to find out, Kate said, and what we need to stop. Samuel turned to face her fully. Why should I trust you now? How do I know this isn't another manipulation? Kate held his gaze steadily. You don't. Trust is earned, not demanded. I'm asking for a chance to earn it back. The elevator doors opened and Laura returned. She approached cautiously, sensing the tension between them. I apologize for the interruption, but we've detected unusual activity at multiple Phoenix facilities. They're mobilizing resources on a scale we haven't seen before. What kind of resources? Samuel asked, professional instincts temporarily overriding personal turmoil. Personnel transfers, equipment, movement, secure communication surges. Something big is happening. Laura handed him a tablet displaying surveillance data. They've accelerated the Winterhawk timeline. Samuel studied the information, his analyst's mind immediately identifying patterns. These deployment vectors suggest a convergence on the Nevada facility. That's our assessment as well, Laura confirmed. They're bringing the isotope core to the Winterhawk device housing. Kate looked over Samuel's shoulder at the data. Why now? They still don't have the Eagle key. Unless they've developed an alternative activation method, Samuel suggested, scanning through technical specifications. Laura shook her head. Unlikely. The quantum encoding on the original key is beyond their current capabilities to replicate. No, this is something else. Samuel continued analyzing the data, focusing on personnel movements. A name caught his attention, triggering an immediate connection. Harris is personally overseeing the Nevada operation. He looked up at Kate. Your extraction was scheduled for Albany, wasn't it? She nodded. Standard NSA protocol for compromised field assets. Harris knew you'd contact NSA for extraction after finding the Eagle key. He planned to intercept you there, retrieve the key, and complete the Winterhawk assembly. Samuel's analytical mind was fully engaged now, personal emotions temporarily channeled into operational assessment. But something changed their timeline. They're proceeding even without the key. Maybe they found another component, Laura suggested. Something Albert hid separately. Samuel's thoughts returned to the journal entries. There was a reference to a secondary cache in Albert's journal. Something about an Eagle protocol if Phoenix reactivated Winterhawk. Laura's expression changed subtly. The Eagle protocol isn't a cache. It's a dead man's switch Albert built into Phoenix's own systems. If the Winterhawk device is activated without proper authorization from the Eagle key, it triggers a global data dump. Every Phoenix operation, every illegal activity, every connection to government officials released simultaneously to media outlets worldwide. So they're calling his bluff, Kate realized. They don't believe the protocol exists, or they think they've neutralized it. Or they're desperate enough to risk exposure, Samuel added. But why? What's changed that makes the risk worthwhile? The answer came from an unexpected source. Diane Cooper appeared at the elevator, supported by one of the medical staff. Her shoulder was bandaged, her face pale but determined. War, she said simply. They're creating a pretext for war. All eyes turned to her. Laura moved quickly to help her to a nearby bench. You should be resting, she admonished gently. Diane shook her head. I've been monitoring news feeds from the medical bay. Tensions in Eastern Europe have escalated dramatically in the past 12 hours. Accusations of treaty violations, military movements on both sides. It's a powder keg. Samuel recalled the news reports he'd seen days earlier, seemingly routine diplomatic tensions that hadn't warranted special attention. You think Phoenix is behind the escalation? It would fit their historical pattern, Laura confirmed. Create the crisis they're funded to solve. A false flag nuclear incident attributed to Russian agents would provide justification for massive military response, expanded intelligence budgets, reduced oversight. The same playbook they tried to run in 1962, Samuel concluded grimly, just updated for current geopolitics. Kate turned to Laura. How quickly can we reach the Nevada facility? We have transportation options, but infiltrating the facility itself is another matter. Phoenix security protocols are extensive, especially with current mobilization. Samuel's mind was working rapidly, integrating everything they had learned. We need access to the Eagle Key's full capabilities. Albert designed it not just as an activation mechanism, but as a master access system for Phoenix technology. If we can interface it properly, it might give us control over their security systems. Laura nodded. Our technical team can help with that. But first, I think there's something else you should see. She turned to one of her staff. Bring up the Legacy Archive Authorization Connor Eagle 7 Beta. The command center's main display shifted, showing a different set of files. Laura selected one, bringing up what appeared to be personnel records. These are the original Phoenix Division founding members, she explained. Albert preserved these records as part of his documentation efforts. Samuel scanned the list, recognizing his father's name immediately. But another name caught his attention, causing his blood to run cold. Richard Harris, he read aloud. NSA Director Harris was part of the original Phoenix. Not exactly, Laura said. This Richard Harris is the current director's father. Phoenix has always operated as a family dynasty. Sons following fathers, daughters following mothers, maintaining operational security through blood loyalty. Samuel continued reading, a new name jumping out at him. William Blackwood, the sheriff. Laura nodded. Son of Robert Blackwood, one of the original security specialists. Phoenix placed their children in strategic positions throughout government and law enforcement, a generational infiltration strategy. The implications were staggering. Phoenix wasn't just a rogue intelligence unit, it was a multi-generational conspiracy embedded within legitimate power structures. And you've known about this for decades, Kate asked incredulously. Why haven't you exposed them? Without concrete proof, any attempted exposure would have been dismissed as conspiracy theory. Albert spent decades gathering evidence, establishing verification protocols that couldn't be denied or discredited. Laura's expression was grim. The Eagle Protocol was designed as a last resort, a complete information dump that would overwhelm Phoenix's ability to contain the narrative. Samuel thought of his brother continuing their father's legacy at Phoenix, of Director Harris following his father's footsteps, of Sheriff Blackwood maintaining the family tradition of service to the Shadow Organization. My whole life, he said quietly, everything I thought I knew about my family, about myself, it was all built on lies. Kate moved closer to him. Not everything. Your choices were your own. Your integrity at the NSA, your resilience afterward, those are real. Their eyes met an unspoken current passing between them. Despite her betrayal, despite everything Samuel found himself wanting to believe her, if we're going to stop Winterhawk, he said finally, we need to work together, all of us. He turned to Laura. I need everything you have on the Nevada facility, schematics, security protocols, personnel rotations. Laura nodded. You'll have it. And I need a secure communication channel to my brother. This request surprised everyone. Kate touched his arm. Samuel, are you sure that's wise? James needs to know what I know about our father, about our mother, about Phoenix's true history. Samuel's expression hardened with determination. He deserves one chance to make the right choice before we burn it all down. Laura hesitated, then nodded. We can arrange it, but it will reveal our general location. We'll need to move immediately afterward. Understood. Samuel turned to Kate. You know NSA countermeasures better than anyone. I need you to help develop our infiltration strategy for the Nevada facility. Kate straightened, her professional demeanor returning. Already thinking about it. If Harris is personally involved, I know his security preferences, his blind spots. Samuel nodded, then turned to Diane, who had been listening quietly. Ms. Cooper, you should stay here and recover. The history teacher shook her head firmly. I was shot because I helped you. I'm already involved. Besides, I have skills you might find useful. What skills? Samuel asked, genuinely curious. Diane smiled faintly. Before I became a teacher, I worked for the State Department, cultural attaché in Eastern Europe. I speak Russian, Ukrainian, and Polish fluently, and I still have contacts in diplomatic circles who might provide useful intelligence on the current crisis. Samuel raised an eyebrow, reassessing the quiet history teacher, who had noticed his non-janitor vocabulary. It seems we all have our secrets, he observed. Indeed, Laura agreed. Now let's get to work. We have a rogue intelligence agency to expose and a nuclear false flag operation to prevent. The command center erupted into activity as Laura's team mobilized resources. Maps and schematics appeared on displays, communication channels were established, transportation options assessed. In the midst of the controlled chaos, Samuel found himself standing before the holographic image of the Winterhawk device, a small, innocent-looking piece of luggage that concealed apocalyptic potential. The culmination of his father's vision, his brother's inheritance, and his uncle's desperate countermeasures. Kate joined him, her shoulder brushing against his as they studied the schematic. For what it's worth, she said quietly, I believe Albert was right to trust you with this. Whatever happens next, you're not alone. Samuel glanced at her, seeing sincerity in her eyes despite the complications between them. He thought of all the lies that had shaped his life and the hard truths he now faced, of his father's betrayal and his mother's murder, of his brother's corruption and his uncle's sacrifice. No, he agreed, his resolve strengthening. Not alone. Together they turned back to the preparations, ready to face whatever came next in this generation's long shadow war, a janitor and an agent against the hidden architects of American intelligence. Dawn broke over the Adirondack Mountains, painting the sky in delicate shades of pink and gold. Inside Eagle's Nest, the command center hummed with activity as preparations continued through the night. Samuel stood before a tactical display, studying the Nevada facility schematics with laser focus. 48 hours had passed since Albert's revelations, each minute devoted to planning their approach. Primary access points are heavily monitored, he observed, highlighting sections on the display. Multiple verification protocols, armed response teams, surveillance coverage with minimal blind spots. Kate nodded, her hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, dark circles under her eyes, evidence of their sleepless preparations. Phoenix wrote the book on perimeter security. We need to find their blind spot. Every system has one, Samuel agreed. It's just a matter of identifying it. Laura approached, carrying tablets with updated intelligence. Our surveillance indicates increased activity at 3 Phoenix facilities, Nevada, Virginia, and a previously unknown location in Colorado. So, anybody, they're coordinating something big. Samuel accepted a tablet, scanning the new information. Resource allocation patterns suggest Nevada remains the primary objective. Personnel with specialized clearance converging from multiple locations. They're assembling their leadership, Kate observed, including my former boss. She pointed to a secure transport authorization for Director Harris. And my brother. Samuel's voice remained steady despite the personal connection. His requested communication with James had gone unanswered, either blocked by Phoenix security protocols or deliberately ignored. Laura turned to a nearby workstation where Diane sat, monitoring diplomatic channels. The history teacher had proven surprisingly valuable, her linguistic skills and diplomatic knowledge, providing context for the escalating international tensions. What's the latest from Eastern Europe? Laura asked. Diane adjusted her headset, her bandaged shoulder still limiting her movement. Russian state media is reporting weapons movements along their western border. NATO issued a statement an hour ago calling for de-escalation. Social media analysis shows coordinated disinformation campaigns stoking nationalism on both sides. Classic preparation for a false flag operation, Kate noted. Create enough background tension that a trigger event seems plausible. Samuel nodded, his analyst mind piecing together the strategy. They're laying groundwork for Winterhawk. A small nuclear detonation blamed on Russian operatives would ignite the powder keg they have been carefully assembling. Laura manipulated the central display, bringing up a global map with strategic sites highlighted. Based on current tensions, we've identified 3 potential Winterhawk targets: Berlin, Warsaw, or Kiev. Each would provide the symbolic impact Phoenix requires while minimizing risk of immediate nuclear retaliation. Civilian casualties would be catastrophic, Diane said quietly. That's the point, Samuel replied grimly. Maximum impact, maximum justification for military response and intelligence expansion. Kate studied the Nevada facility schematic again. Her brow furrowed in concentration. We need to get inside before the device is deployed. Once it's in transit, our chances of interception drop significantly. Laura nodded. My team has prepared infiltration equipment based on known Phoenix security protocols. But there's another option we should consider. She hesitated briefly. The Eagle Key. Samuel removed the antique pocket watch from his pocket, its weight familiar in his palm. Albert designed it as more than just an activation device. Our technical assessment confirms it contains quantum computational capabilities far beyond its apparent age or design, Laura confirmed. We believe it can interface with Phoenix security systems, potentially providing remote access. Like a skeleton key for their entire infrastructure, Kate mused. If we can establish the proper connection protocols, Laura cautioned. The technology is unconventional. Samuel turned the watch over in his hand, studying the eagle emblem on its face. We need to test it before committing to the approach. If it fails during infiltration, we're exposed without backup options. Agreed, Laura said. Our technical team has established a simulation environment based on known Phoenix security architecture. We can run diagnostics without risking detection. As they discussed technical specifications, Diane removed her headset and approached the group. I've been monitoring psychological profiles of the key Phoenix leadership, she said, bringing up personnel files on a nearby display. Based on historical decision patterns, they're likely following a specific operational timeline. Samuel studied the profiles, recognizing his brothers among them. James Reeves Jr., psychology assessment, methodical, precise values control, and predictability. Demonstrates exceptional strategic planning capabilities with emphasis on redundancy and contingency development. My brother's always been meticulous, Samuel observed. 3 backup plans for every primary approach. which means they'll have anticipated potential interference, Kate added, including the possibility of the Eagle key being used against them. But they don't know about Sparrow, Laura pointed out, or the quantum capabilities Albert integrated into the key. That remains our advantage. Samuel nodded, making a decision. Let's test the key interface. If it works, we build our primary infiltration plan around it. If not, we fall back to conventional approach vectors. Laura directed them to a specialized lab deeper in the facility. The room contained advanced equipment surrounding a central platform where technicians had constructed what appeared to be a scaled replica of the Nevada facility's security architecture. We've replicated their systems based on Albert's documentation and our own intelligence gathering, Laura explained. Not perfect, but close enough for testing purposes. A technician approached, introducing himself as Dr. Chen. The integration process is delicate, he explained, indicating a specialized interface device. The quantum elements don't respond to conventional electronic systems in predictable ways. Samuel handed over the Eagle key reluctantly. Be careful with that. It's irreplaceable. Dr. Chen nodded, placing the device into a custom housing designed to read its unique signature. We'll start with passive scanning, then attempt incremental interface protocols. As the technical team worked, Samuel stepped back, suddenly feeling the weight of the past several days. Fatigue washed over him, not just physical exhaustion, but emotional depletion. The revelations about his family, the magnitude of what they were attempting to prevent, the uncertainty of what came next. Kate noticed his expression and moved closer. You should rest, she said quietly. Even NSA's top analysts need sleep occasionally. So should you, he countered. A small smile touched her lips. I caught 2 hours on a cot in the medical bay. Your turn. Before he could argue, Laura approached. Dr. Chen's team needs time to establish baseline protocols. I suggest you both take a break. We have quarters prepared. Samuel reluctantly agreed, following Laura to a residential section of the facility. The room she showed him was simple but comfortable: a bed, a small bathroom, basic necessities. It reminded him of his apartment, functional and unadorned. There's fresh clothing in the drawers, Laura said. The cafeteria is one level up if you're hungry. We'll notify you when the testing reaches a critical stage. Left alone, Samuel showered the hot water, washing away some of the physical tension. He changed into the provided clothing, simple black tactical gear that fits surprisingly well. The exhaustion remained, however, a bone-deep weariness that made the bed look increasingly inviting. He stretched out, intending just to rest his eyes for a moment. Sleep claimed him instantly, pulling him into dreams filled with fractured images, his father standing before a device that pulsed with unnatural light, his mother's car plunging from a dark road, his brother's face transforming into something inhuman. A soft knock woke him. Samuel sat up, momentarily disoriented, before his training reasserted itself. He checked his watch. 3 hours had passed. Come in, he called, swinging his legs over the side of the bed. The door opened to reveal Kate carrying 2 steaming mugs. Coffee, she said, offering one to him. Thought you might needed it. Samuel accepted the mug gratefully, the rich aroma helping to clear the fog of sleep. Any updates? Duchen's team is making progress, she said, sitting beside him on the bed. Initial interface tests are promising. They've established basic communication protocols with the simulated Phoenix systems. Samuel nodded, sipping the coffee. It was good, strong, and black, the way he preferred it. You remembered, he observed. Kate looked puzzled. The coffee, no cream or sugar. A small smile touched her lips. I noticed at the farmhouse, you had a cup on your desk, black, cooling while you worked on decoding the journal. The observation surprised him, such a small detail noticed amidst the chaos of their situation. It spoke to her training, but perhaps something more personal as well. They sat in companionable silence for a moment, the weight of their mission temporarily held at bay. In the quiet, Samuel found himself studying her profile, the determined set of her jaw, the intelligence in her eyes, the strand of dark hair that had escaped her ponytail. Why did you really request this assignment? He asked finally. After Belarus, after everything. Kate stared into her coffee, considering her response. Initially guilt. I failed to stand up when it mattered. Failed to protect the integrity of the analysis process. She looked up, meeting his gaze directly. But when I began investigating Phoenix, when I saw the patterns emerging, the same patterns you had started to identify in Belarus, it became something more. Redemption, Samuel suggested. Justice, she corrected. For you, for the agents who died, for everyone Phoenix has manipulated or eliminated to protect their operations. Samuel nodded slowly, understanding the drive all too well. And after the past few days, learning that Phoenix goes beyond rogue operations to non-terrestrial technology and multi-generational conspiracy, Kate's expression shifted, vulnerability briefly visible beneath her professional composure. Now it's about preventing a catastrophe and, she hesitated, finding a way forward for both of us. The implication hung in the air between them, an acknowledgement of something developing beyond professional cooperation. Before Samuel could respond, his tablet chimed with an incoming alert. Dr. Chen's team, he said, checking the message. They've completed the initial interface tests. The Eagle key works. Kate nodded, professional focus returning immediately. Then we have our approach vector. They returned to the command center where the atmosphere had shifted from methodical preparation to focused urgency. Dr. Chen met them at the entrance, excitement evident in his normally reserved demeanor. The quantum interface is extraordinary, he reported, leading them to his workstation. It establishes communication protocols that bypass conventional security entirely, like it's operating on an entirely different layer of reality. Can you explain in practical terms? Samuel asked. Dr. Chen nodded. The Eagle key doesn't hack Phoenix systems, it communicates with them on a fundamental level. It's as if Albert built a back door into their entire infrastructure at the quantum level. What are the limitations? Kate asked. Distance primarily. The quantum entanglement effect weakens with physical separation. You'll need to be within approximately 500 meters of a Phoenix network node to establish connection. Samuel studied the Nevada facility schematic. Their perimeter security extends 800 meters from the central structure. We'd need to penetrate their outer defenses before the key becomes effective. Which brings us back to conventional infiltration for the initial approach, Kate concluded. Laura joined them, bringing up transportation options on the main display. We've secured a private aircraft capable of reaching Nevada without triggering standard aviation monitoring. The pilot has experience with covert insertions. When do we leave? Samuel asked. 6 hours, Laura replied. My team is finalizing equipment preparation and route planning. We should coordinate with Diane on the latest intelligence, Kate suggested. Any shift in the diplomatic situation could affect Phoenix's timeline. They found Diane in the communications section, still monitoring international channels. The history teacher looked exhausted but determined, her injured shoulder clearly causing discomfort despite medication. You should be resting, Samuel told her. Diane shook her head. Too much happening. Russian naval vessels have changed course toward the Baltic. NATO air forces increased readiness levels. UN Security Council called an emergency session. The perfect environment for a false flag operation, Kate observed grimly. There's more, Diane said, bringing up a news report on her screen. Sheriff Blackwood made a statement about your disappearance. They're framing it as domestic terrorism, claiming you stole classified materials and may be working with foreign operatives. The screen showed Blackwood at a press conference, his expression grave as he described Samuel as armed and extremely dangerous. They're building a cover story, Samuel realized. If we're labeled terrorists, anything we reveal about Phoenix can be dismissed as propaganda or disinformation. Standard containment protocol, Kate agreed. Discredit the messenger to neutralize the message. Laura joined them, studying the news report. We anticipated this. It's why we've established verification protocols for the Eagle protocol data release. Multiple independent confirmation sources, cryptographic signatures that can't be forged, chain of custody documentation. Samuel nodded, but a new concern had formed. They're also making it impossible for us to seek help from legitimate authorities. If we're spotted, every law enforcement agency in the country will be looking for us. Then we don't get spotted, Kate said simply. The next several hours passed in focused preparation. Equipment was checked and rechecked, infiltration routes reviewed, communication protocols established. Through it all, Samuel felt a growing sense of partnership with Kate, their complementary skills creating an operational synergy he hadn't experienced since his NSA days. During a brief break, they found themselves alone in the facility's small cafeteria. Kate picked at a meal of sandwiches and fruit, while Samuel studied satellite imagery of the Nevada desert surrounding the Phoenix facility. When this is over, Kate said suddenly, what will you do? The question caught Samuel off guard. He'd been so focused on the mission on preventing catastrophe, he hadn't considered what came after. I don't know, he admitted. Going back to being a janitor seems inadequate. Kate smiled faintly. I can't quite picture you mopping floors anymore. It was peaceful in its way, methodical, results you could see immediately. Samuel set aside the tablet. What about you? Assuming we're not both in federal prison or eliminated by Phoenix assets. I've been thinking about that, she said thoughtfully. The NSA needs people like you analysts with integrity who follow the evidence regardless of political pressure. If we succeed, if Phoenix is exposed, there will be a reckoning throughout the intelligence community. A chance to rebuild with proper oversight. You're assuming they'll let either of us anywhere near classified information again. I'm assuming we'll have leverage, Kate corrected. The people who expose the biggest intelligence conspiracy in American history tend to have some negotiating power. Samuel found himself smiling despite the gravity of their situation. Planning ahead already. Always. Kate hesitated, then reached across the table to touch his hand. But not just professionally. The contact was brief, but charged with meaning. Before Samuel could respond, Laura entered the cafeteria. It's time, she announced. Transportation is ready. They gathered their equipment and joined the rest of the team at the facility's vehicle bay. A modified SUV waited to transport them to a private airfield hidden in the mountains. As final preparations were made, Diane approached Samuel. Her arm was in a sling, but she carried herself with determination. I should be going with you, she insisted. Samuel shook his head. Your shoulder hasn't healed, and we need someone here coordinating intelligence updates. He's right, Laura agreed. Your diplomatic expertise is critical for monitoring the international situation. If Phoenix accelerates their timeline, we need to know immediately. Diane reluctantly nodded. Be careful out there, both of you. She surprised Samuel with a one-armed hug, then stepped back. Remember what you are fighting for. The drive to the airfield took 40 minutes through winding mountain roads. Their pilot introduced only as Mitchell greeted them with the quiet competence of long military experience. Weather conditions favorable, he informed them as they boarded. ETA Nevada approximately 6 hours with current wind patterns. Radio silence maintained throughout flight except emergency protocols. The aircraft was a modified private jet, its interior stripped of luxury appointments and reconfigured for operational use. Samuel and Kate secured their equipment while Laura briefed them on final intelligence updates. Phoenix has implemented elevated security protocols at the Nevada facility, she reported. Satellite imagery shows increased perimeter patrols and additional personnel at access points. Expected, Samuel noted. Standard procedure during high-value operations. There's more, Laura continued. Our sources indicate Director Harris arrived at the facility 3 hours ago, and your brother is scheduled to arrive within the next 12 hours. Samuel absorbed this information, feeling the weight of personal connection to their mission. Not just stopping a rogue intelligence operation, but confronting his own flesh and blood. As the aircraft lifted off, banking westward into the gathering dusk, Kate moved to sit beside him. You okay? She asked quietly. I will be, he replied, when this is over. She nodded, understanding the complex emotions behind his simple answer. After a moment, she reached into her pocket and removed a small object, placing it in his palm. I found this in your apartment, she explained, when we were leaving. Thought you might want it. It was the chess knight, his well-worn worry piece that he'd carried for years. Samuel closed his fingers around it, feeling its familiar contours. Thank you, he said simply. Kate smiled, then turned professional again. We should review the infiltration plan one more time, identifying potential contingencies. They spent the next hour refining their approach, accounting for variables, and establishing decision trees for different scenarios. The process was familiar to both of them, standard intelligence methodology, but their seamless collaboration felt new. As the flight continued, fatigue began to catch up with them again. Kate dozed briefly, her head eventually coming to rest on Samuel's shoulder. He remained still, not wanting to disturb her, watching the stars through the aircraft's window. His thoughts turned to Albert, the uncle he barely knew, who had spent decades preparing for this moment, who had sacrificed everything to prevent a catastrophe only to pass the burden to his nephew. Samuel wondered if Albert had foreseen this exact scenario, Samuel and an NSA agent flying toward a confrontation with Phoenix and the Winterhawk device. The aircraft began its descent 3 hours later and approaching a small private airstrip in the Nevada desert. Mitchell executed a textbook landing on the darkened runway, bringing the aircraft to a stop near a hangar where two all-terrain vehicles waited. "This is where we part ways," Laura told them as they gathered their equipment. "I'll coordinate from a mobile command post 20 miles from the facility. Close enough for secure communication, far enough to avoid detection." Samuel nodded, checking his tactical gear one final time. "Any updates on facility activity?" "Satellite passed 30 minutes ago showed normal operations. No unusual movement or heightened alert status." "That's good," Kate said, securing her weapon. "Means they're not expecting us." Laura handed them each a specialized communication device. "These operate on frequencies Phoenix doesn't monitor. Quantum encryption makes interception effectively impossible." "Range limitations?" Samuel asked. 50 miles under optimal conditions, less in the case of significant geological interference. The all-terrain vehicles were designed for desert operation, rugged quiet with specialized cooling systems to minimize thermal signature. Samuel and Kate took one, Laura and her support team the other. "Remember," Laura said before they departed, "the Eagle Key is our primary advantage. Once you're within range of their systems, it should provide unprecedented access. But be prepared for countermeasures we haven't anticipated." "Always," Samuel assured her. The desert night was cool and clear, stars blazing overhead with an intensity rarely seen near civilization. They drove in silence, following a carefully plotted route designed to avoid standard surveillance vectors. The Phoenix facility was located in a restricted area officially designated for military testing, remote, isolated, perfect for operations requiring absolute secrecy. 2 hours into their approach, they reached the outer surveillance perimeter. Samuel brought the vehicle to a stop behind a natural rock formation that provided concealment. "From here we proceed on foot," he said, checking their position against satellite imagery. 3 miles to the facility perimeter, staying within the radar shadow of these rock formations. Kate nodded, removing specialized equipment from their pack's night vision systems, thermal dampening, gear, communication devices. They worked together with practiced efficiency, preparing for the infiltration. As Samuel adjusted his equipment, Kate touched his arm. "Before we go any further, there's something I need to say." He looked up, hearing something in her voice that transcended their operational focus. "I've been in intelligence for 15 years, she continued, "worked with the best analysts, the most elite field operatives, but I've never met anyone who combines your analytical precision with fundamental decency. Whatever happens in there, I want you to know it's been an honor working with you." The simple sincerity of her words caught Samuel off guard. In the midst of their mission, with its world-changing stakes and personal revelations, this moment of connection felt unexpectedly significant. "The honor has been mine," he replied quietly. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, acknowledging the bond that had formed through danger and shared purpose. Then simultaneously, they returned to the mission at hand. They moved through the desert with careful precision, using natural terrain features for concealment. Kate took point, her field operational experience guiding their approach. Samuel followed the Eagle Key, secure in a specialized pouch designed to shield its quantum signature. As they neared the facility perimeter, Samuel's communication device vibrated. Laura's voice came through the secure channel, tension evident despite the encryption. "Be advised, we're detecting unusual activity at the facility. Multiple vehicles arriving, personnel movement patterns inconsistent with standard operations." "Acceleration of timeline," Samuel suggested quietly. "Possible. Satellite pass in 18 minutes will provide visual confirmation." Kate gestured for them to take cover behind a large boulder. "Could be coincidence, could be they've detected our approach." Samuel shook his head. "Phoenix doesn't believe in coincidences. We need to assume the worst." "Agreed," Sertid. New approach vector. Samuel considered their options, studying the facility layout on his tactical display. "Original plan remains optimal, but we accelerate the timeline. Get within Eagle Key range as quickly as possible. Establish system access before they can implement countermeasures." Kate nodded, adjusting her equipment. "Let's move." They continued their approach, maintaining communication discipline while increasing pace. The facility gradually came into view, a sprawling complex of low buildings surrounded by multiple security perimeters. Surface structures revealed little of its true nature or extent, most operations housed in underground levels. Outer perimeter 800 meters ahead, Samuel noted. Standard motion detection, thermal imaging, ground vibration sensors. Countermeasures active, Kate confirmed, activating specialized equipment designed to defeat conventional security systems. They reached the perimeter fence without incident, Kate's countermeasures successfully masking their approach. The fence itself presented minimal challenge with appropriate cutting tools, allowing access to the facility grounds without triggering alarms. "We're in," Samuel reported through the secure channel, proceeding to Phase 2 position. Laura's response came immediately. Satellite confirmation of increased activity, multiple high-clearance personnel entering the central structure. Timeline definitely accelerated. "Understood." Samuel turned to Kate. "We need to reach the utility access corridor. Eagle Key range should be effective once we're inside the outer structure." They moved across the facility grounds, staying in shadow, avoiding patrol patterns they had memorized from surveillance data. The utility access point, a simple service door set into a concrete foundation structure, was their target. As they approached, Samuel removed the Eagle Key from its protective pouch. "Once we're inside, we should have system access within minutes." Kate nodded, covering their position while he worked. The access door featured a standard electronic lock with keypad access, military-grade, 6-digit combination with anti-tampering protocols. Samuel examined the access panel, then carefully connected the Eagle Key using adapted communication cables. The connection established with unexpected ease, suggesting compatible design parameters despite apparent technological disparities. The access panel illuminated briefly, then the lock disengaged with a metallic click. "We're in," Samuel whispered. They entered the utility access corridor, a narrow concrete passage housing power conduits, water pipes, and data infrastructure cables. The space was utilitarian, illuminated by minimal emergency lighting, free from surveillance systems that would monitor personnel areas. Kate identified the primary data trunk line fiber optic cables connecting security systems throughout the facility. "Central network connection point," she confirmed. "All Phoenix systems integrated through this infrastructure." Samuel prepared the Eagle Key for full system interface, carefully calibrating the device for its expanded function. As he worked, Kate maintained security monitoring alert for patrol patterns or maintenance personnel. The interface connection established successfully, confirmed by status indicators on the Eagle Key. Samuel activated the quantum protocols Albert had designed decades earlier, dormant command structures embedded within Phoenix systems, waiting for activation by the appropriate authorization. "System access established," Samuel confirmed, studying the data flow on his portable display. "We have monitoring capability for all Phoenix security functions and potential override authority for critical systems." "Including Winterhawk control mechanisms?" Kate asked. "If properly integrated into their network, yes." Samuel navigated through the facility's digital architecture, mapping systems, and access points. "I'm getting schematics, personnel locations, security protocols, everything." Kate studied the display over his shoulder. There, she pointed to a section of the underground complex. "Central research level, unusual activity concentration." Samuel focused on that area, accessing security feeds. The images confirmed their worst fears, a team of technicians surrounding a familiar object, the Winterhawk device housing being prepared for activation. "They're in final preparation stages," he observed grimly. "Timeline has definitely accelerated." "Can you access the control systems?" Kate asked. Samuel navigated deeper into the facility network. "Working on it. Security protocols are layered. Even with the Eagle Key, it takes time to establish full access." As he worked, movement on one of the security feeds caught his attention. A figure in an expensive suit entered the research level, flanked by security personnel. Samuel recognized him immediately. "James," he said quietly, "my brother is on site." Kate squeezed his shoulder briefly. "Stay focused. We need to gain control of Winterhawk before they complete activation preparations." Samuel nodded, continuing to navigate the Phoenix systems. Another alert appeared on his display, a secure elevator ascending from the lower levels, its occupant hidden from camera view by security protocols. "Someone with extremely high clearance," Samuel noted. "Director Harris, most likely." "If both James and Harris are here, they're ready for the final stage," Kate concluded. Samuel accessed deeper system levels, finally reaching the Winterhawk control architecture. I've got it. Control systems for the device itself. He studied the interface, recognizing Albert's distinctive programming methodology embedded within conventional protocols, hidden backdoors, and fail-safes concealed beneath standard operations. Albert built more than just access protocols, Samuel realized. He created a complete override system. A sudden alarm blared through the facility, cutting him off. Red emergency lights activated in the corridor. Security breach detected, an automated voice announced. Unauthorized system access in Sector 7. Security teams deploy immediately. Kate drew her weapon. They've detected the Eagle Key interface. Impossible, Samuel insisted, checking the connection. The quantum protocols should be invisible to conventional security. Unless they were expecting it, Kate suggested. Unless they've developed countermeasures specifically for the Eagle Key. Samuel's mind raced, considering possibilities. We need to move. Now. Deeper into the facility before security teams locked down the access corridors. They gathered their equipment quickly, Samuel maintaining the Eagle Key connection despite the alarm. They moved further into the utility corridor, following schematics now available through their system access. The ventilation system, Samuel indicated a maintenance shaft. It connects to lower levels, including the research section, where they're preparing Winterhawk. The shaft dimensions were restrictive but navigable. Another example of security oversight regarding physical infrastructure. They entered the ventilation system, moving methodically through the metal ductwork. As they approached the central research level, sounds of activity became audible through the ventilation system. Voices, equipment operation, security announcements. The facility had entered elevated status, personnel, mobilized for significant operations. A ventilation grate provided visual access to the laboratory area. Samuel observed carefully, identifying scientific personnel and protective equipment surrounding the Winterhawk device. The housing was open, revealing complex internal components being prepared for integration with the isotope core. They're preparing integration procedures, he assessed, based on visible activities, technical specifications, and compatibility verification for Winterhawk components. Timeline: based on preparation protocols, approximately 30 minutes before potential device activation. They continued through the ventilation system, proceeding to the deepest facility level where the final assembly would take place. The shaft terminated near a specialized chamber marked Integration Lab Alpha. Before they could exit the ventilation system, Samuel's display flashed with an urgent alert from the Eagle Key interface. Security override initiated, he read. Someone's attempting to disconnect our access. Can they succeed? Kate asked. Not easily, but they know we're in their systems now. They'll be implementing countermeasures. Samuel worked rapidly, establishing additional access protocols to maintain their connection. As he did, the facility's alert status escalated again. Full facility lockdown implementing, the automated system announced. All personnel report to secure positions. This is not a drill. We're running out of time, Kate warned. They exited the ventilation shaft, carefully finding themselves in a maintenance alcove adjacent to the integration lab. Through a small observation window, they could see the Winterhawk device being positioned in the center of the room. Technicians worked with focused urgency, directed by a tall figure Samuel recognized immediately. James, he whispered. His brother stood before the device, his expression intense as he supervised the final preparations. Beside him, an older man with silver hair and the bearing of someone accustomed to absolute authority, Director Harris Samuel presumed. We need to get in there, Kate said. Stop the integration before they activate Winterhawk. Samuel studied the security panel beside the lab entrance. The Eagle Key should override the access controls, but they'll detect the interference immediately. We don't have a choice, Kate replied, readying her weapon. It's now or never. Samuel connected the Eagle Key to the lab security panel. The system resisted briefly, then the door indicator shifted from red to green. The heavy security door slid open with a hydraulic hiss. Every head in the lab turned toward them. James's expression shifted from surprise to cold calculation in an instant. Security breach in Integration Lab Alpha, the automated system announced somewhat redundantly. Hello, brother, Samuel said, stepping into the room with the Eagle Key in one hand and his service weapon in the other. I think it's time we talked about Operation Iron Gate. The integration lab fell silent. Technicians froze at their workstations, eyes darting between the armed intruders and their superiors. Director Harris recovered first, his hand moving subtly toward the inside of his jacket. I wouldn't, Kate warned, her weapon trained steadily on him. NSA counterintelligence. This facility is compromised. Harris's cold eyes assessed her. Agent Morgan, your performance reviews always noted your initiative and your occasional insubordination. Consider this my resignation letter, Kate replied. James Reeves hadn't moved, his gaze fixed on Samuel. The family resemblance between the brothers was striking. Same analytical eyes, same strong jawline, but where Samuel's expression carried determination tinged with regret, James showed only calculated assessment. Security teams are already converging on this location, James said calmly. Whatever you hope to accomplish, you've failed before you've begun. Samuel raised the eagle key. I don't think so. We've accessed your systems. We know about Winterhawk, about Phoenix Division, about what happened to our mother. A flicker of something surprised, perhaps concern, crossed James's face before his professional mask returned. You've been misled, he said smoothly, by people with limited understanding of national security imperatives. I've seen Albert's evidence, Samuel countered. His journals, the records he kept, the truth about our father's work and your continuation of it. Director Harris signaled subtly to the technicians, who began slowly backing away from the device. James stepped forward, positioning himself between Samuel and Winterhawk. You always were brilliant, Sam. Top of your class at the academy. NSA's golden boy, until Belarus. James's voice carried a note of what might have been genuine regret. You could have been part of this. Father wanted that. I wanted that. Part of what false flag operations, illegal experimentation, murder. Part of securing America's future, James replied sharply. Phoenix exists because conventional intelligence operations are hamstrung by oversight committees, political agendas, and public opinion. We operate beyond those constraints. Beyond the law, Kate interjected. Beyond obsolete frameworks that prevent necessary action, Harris countered. The isotope technology represents capabilities decades ahead of conventional systems. Capabilities that could ensure American dominance for generations. Samuel kept the eagle key, raised its interface, maintaining connection with facility systems. The technology isn't what you think it is. It's not just advanced, it's not human. James and Harris exchanged glances. So Albert shared that fantasy with you, James said dismissively. His mental state deteriorated significantly after his disappearance. His beliefs about the technology's origins were symptoms of paranoid delusion. Then explain the quantum architecture, Samuel challenged. The molecular composition impossible to replicate with Earth materials. The energy signature that defies conventional physics. Theoretical applications developed through classified research programs, Harris replied smoothly. Nothing more exotic than human innovation pushed beyond public understanding. You're lying, Samuel said flatly. Sparrow showed us everything. The crash sites, the recovered materials, the manipulation of both American and Soviet weapons development during the Cold War. At the mention of Sparrow, both James and Harris tensed visibly. The director's hand moved again toward his jacket. Last warning, Kate said, adjusting her aim. The facility alarms changed tone, indicating a new security protocol. Through the lab windows, Samuel could see armed response teams taking position in the corridor outside. You're surrounded, James stated. There's no scenario where you leave here alive unless you accept reality and cooperate. Samuel's mind raced, analyzing options and potential outcomes. The Eagle Key interface showed facility schematics, security positions, system vulnerabilities, a comprehensive overview of their tactical situation. It was grim, but not hopeless. You know what Albert built into Phoenix systems? Samuel said, addressing his brother directly. The Eagle Protocol. If Winterhawk activates without proper authorization, it triggers a global data dump. Every Phoenix operation, every illegal activity, every connection to government officials released simultaneously to media outlets worldwide. A theoretical threat, Harris dismissed. We've isolated those systems, neutralized the protocol. Have you, Samuel manipulated the Eagle Key interface, bringing up a specific subsystem? Because according to this, the quantum entanglement network Albert established remains operational. The dead man's switch is still active. James studied Samuel's face, looking for deception. Finding none, he turned to Harris. Sir, we should verify system integrity before proceeding. There's no time, Harris snapped. The international situation is primed. The isotope core is prepared for integration. We proceed as planned. And risk complete exposure, James questioned. If there's even a possibility the protocol remains active. It's a bluff, Harris insisted, but uncertainty had crept into his voice. Samuel saw the opening division in the Phoenix leadership. It's not a bluff, and there's more you don't know about the technology, about what Albert discovered in 1987 when he contacted Sparrow directly. James's expression shifted subtly. What are you talking about? James, Harris warned, we don't negotiate with terrorists. He's my brother, James replied, not taking his eyes off Samuel. And he's not a terrorist. He's a brilliant analyst who might have relevant information. Samuel nodded slightly, acknowledging the opening. The isotope technology isn't just advanced, it was designed to influence human weapons development, to push both superpowers toward mutually assured destruction. Sparrow was the counterforce, an entity trying to prevent that outcome. Entities. Harris corrected his slip, revealing more knowledge than he intended. Plural, competing non-terrestrial interests using human conflict as a proxy war. Richard, James said sharply, that's classified beyond even Phoenix protocols. The moment of division between them was interrupted as the lab door slid open. Security teams entered with tactical precision, weapons trained on Samuel and Kate. Stand down, James ordered immediately. No firing unless I give direct authorization. The security leader hesitated, glancing at Director Harris, who gave a reluctant nod of confirmation. We're at an impasse, James observed. You can't stop the Winterhawk activation, but we can't proceed safely without verifying the Eagle protocol status. Samuel kept the Eagle Key interface active, monitoring facility systems. There's another option. Full disclosure. Bring Phoenix operations under legitimate oversight. End the extra-constitutional activities. Use the non-terrestrial technology for its intended purpose, advancement, rather than destruction. Harris laughed coldly. Naive idealism. The world doesn't work that way. It could, Kate countered, with people of integrity making different choices. James studied Samuel's genuine conflict, visible in his expression. You really believe that, don't you? That we could simply, confess our sins, subject decades of critical operations to congressional committees and public scrutiny? I believe in accountability, Samuel replied. Something our father forgot along the way. At the mention of their father, James's expression hardened. You didn't know him. Not really. You were too young when he was at his peak, when he built Phoenix into something that could truly protect American interests regardless of political winds. I know he ordered our mother killed when she discovered what he was doing, Samuel said quietly. James flinched as if struck. That's a lie. Mother died in a car accident. Phoenix assets implemented what they termed regrettable but necessary containment. Samuel quoted from Albert's recording. Father gave the order personally. No, James shook his head. No, he wouldn't have. He loved her. He loved power more, Samuel pressed. The authority to operate beyond oversight, beyond accountability, beyond humanity. The facility shuddered suddenly, a distant explosion reverberating through the structure. Emergency systems activated, new alarms sounding throughout the complex. Perimeter breach, a security officer reported. Multiple points of intrusion. Unknown hostiles engaging security teams on upper levels. Harris moved to a communication panel. Deploy all reserve units. Lock down the Winterhawk device. Prepare for immediate relocation. Sir, the security officer interrupted. Communication systems are compromised. External channels non-responsive. Samuel checked the Eagle Key interface. That's not us, he said to Kate. Someone else is in their systems. James activated an emergency console, bringing up security feeds from throughout the facility. The images showed a coordinated assault by tactical teams using advanced equipment and precision tactics. Not military, James assessed professionally. Not FBI or any known federal unit. Sparrow, Samuel suggested. Harris shook his head. Impossible. They're observers, not direct actors. Another explosion closer this time shook the lab. Dust filtered down from ceiling panels. We need to move the device, Harris ordered. Secure transport protocols now. James hesitated, looking between the Winterhawk device and Samuel. A decision crystallized in his eyes. Belay that order, he said firmly. We need to verify the Eagle protocol status before proceeding. If Samuel's right activation could expose every Phoenix operation since inception. Harris's face flushed with anger. That is not your decision to make. I am the director of Phoenix Division. And I'm the chief of operations, James countered. Protocol Alpha 7 gives me authority to countermand orders that potentially compromise organizational security. The power dynamics in the room shifted palpably. Security personnel looked between the two leaders, uncertain whose orders to follow. Samuel seized the moment, accessing deeper system levels through the Eagle key. I can verify the protocol status, he offered. Show you exactly what Albert built into your systems. James nodded. Do it. Harris moved with unexpected speed, drawing a concealed weapon. This is sedition, he snarled at James. Treason against everything your father built. Kate's weapon remained trained on Harris. Put it down, Director. For a tense moment, no one moved. Then Harris slowly lowered his weapon. You're making a catastrophic mistake, he told James. Everything we've worked for, everything your father sacrificed for undone by sentiment for a brother who betrayed his country. I never betrayed my country, Samuel said quietly. Just the people who betrayed its principles. Working quickly, Samuel accessed the Phoenix Command architecture through the Eagle key. The system displayed a complex network of protocols and fail-safes Albert's intricate contingency planning laid bare. Here he indicated a subsystem labeled Eagle Protocol Active. Albert built redundant verification systems. Multiple triggers, multiple distribution channels. Even if you isolated some others, remain operational. James studied the display, his analyst mind absorbing the implications. He built this decades ago, yet it's integrated with our most current systems. Quantum architecture doesn't follow conventional technological evolution, Samuel explained. It exists partially outside normal space-time reference frames. The facility shook again as another explosion sounded much closer this time. We're running out of time, Kate warned. Harris moved toward the Winterhawk device. Whether the protocol is active or not, we can't allow this technology to fall into unknown hands. Activation sequence initiated. He pressed his palm against a biometric scanner on the device housing. Internal mechanisms hummed to life lights activating along its perimeter. Richard, no. James lunged toward him, but security personnel restrained him, uncertain in the chain of command crisis. Samuel worked frantically through the Eagle key interface, attempting to override the activation sequence. It's locked to his biometric signature, he reported tensely. I can't stop it remotely. Harris smiled coldly. Precisely. The final failsafe, only direct physical interface by authorized personnel, can complete or abort the sequence now. You're insane, Kate said. You're activating a nuclear device inside your own facility. Not activating, preparing for transport, Harris corrected. Once primed, it can be moved to its target location. The isotope core isn't integrated yet. That happens at deployment. The lab door burst open as another explosion rocked the facility. Security teams exchanged fire with unseen attackers in the corridor outside. In the chaos, a stray bullet struck a power conduit, sending sparks cascading across the lab. Samuel maintained his focus on the Eagle key interface, searching for any system vulnerability that might allow him to abort the activation sequence. What he found instead was something unexpected, a hidden message embedded in the command architecture, written in Albert's distinctive cryptographic style. Samuel, if you're reading this, Sparrow's prediction was correct. Sosana, Phoenix activation inevitable following my official death. Winterhawk was never the true threat. It's what Phoenix would become without opposition. The weapon is secondary to what it contains. Quantum protocols will transmit all Phoenix archives to designated secure repositories upon your authentication. The choice is yours. Remember, time reveals all secrets. Understanding Dawn. Albert's decades-long strategy wasn't just to prevent Winterhawk's activation. It was to expose the entire Phoenix operation when the moment was right. The Eagle protocol wasn't just a dead man's switch. It was a comprehensive information release mechanism waiting for Samuel's final authorization. The firefight in the corridor intensified. Through the smoke and confusion, Samuel saw a figure fall, one of Harris's security detail, wounded by incoming fire. Kate, Samuel called, cover me. She nodded, positioning herself to provide fire support as he moved toward the Winterhawk device. Harris stood before it, continuing the activation sequence through direct interface with its control systems. Stay back, Harris warned, drawing his weapon again and aiming at Samuel. It's over, Richard, Samuel said calmly. Even if you activate Winterhawk, even if you somehow deploy it, the Eagle protocol will expose everything. Phoenix is finished. Phoenix is necessary, Harris insisted, desperation creeping into his voice. Without us, America is vulnerable. Conventional intelligence agencies are too constrained, too visible. Someone needs to operate in the shadows. Not beyond accountability, Samuel countered. Not beyond the law. Another explosion rocked the facility, this one directly overhead. Ceiling panels crashed down, emergency lighting flickered, and the sprinkler system activated, spraying water throughout the lab. In the confusion, Harris fired. The shot went wide, striking equipment behind Samuel. Kate returned fire, forcing Harris to take cover behind the Winterhawk device. Samuel, James called out, breaking free from the distracted security personnel. The activation sequence is at stage 3. Once it reaches stage 5, it can't be aborted. Samuel glanced at the Eagle Key interface, confirming his brother's warning. The activation progress indicators showed stage 3 of 5 completed, with stage 4 initiating. He made his decision. Using the Eagle Key, Samuel activated Albert's hidden protocol, not to prevent Winterhawk's activation, but to authorize the complete information release. Authentication confirmed. Eagle protocol active. Immediate changes rippled through facility systems. Security protocols reconfigured, command authorities redistributed, communication channels secured against external monitoring. The Winterhawk device itself began internal reconfiguration. Components separated and reformed in patterns, suggesting something beyond mere deactivation. Quantum transmission initiated. Estimated completion 4 minutes. Physical extraction recommended. It's transmitting the Phoenix archives, Samuel explained to James, who had reached his side. Everything: operations, personnel, financial networks to secure locations worldwide. Albert's insurance policy: complete exposure if Phoenix ever reactivated Winterhawk. James stared at the interface display, watching decades of secrecy dissolving in real time. He really did think of everything. Harris emerged from behind the device, his weapon still raised, but his expression showing defeat rather than defiance. "You have no idea what you've done," he said flatly. "The damage to national security will be incalculable." "No," Samuel countered. "The damage was done when Phoenix decided it was above the law. This is accountability, finally delivered." The firefight in the corridor had stopped. Figures entered the lab, tactical operators in unmarked gear, moving with professional precision. Leading them was Laura Connor, a compact submachine gun held comfortably in her experienced hands. "Samuel, Kate," she called. "Time to go. This facility is compromised beyond recovery." Harris raised his weapon toward Laura, but Kate was faster. Her shot struck his shoulder, spinning him backward against the Winterhawk device. He collapsed, wounded but conscious, his eyes burning with hatred. "You can't stop what's coming," he gasped. "They've been here since 1947, watching, waiting, some helping us, others working against us. Phoenix was humanity's only defense." "No," Samuel said, kneeling beside the fallen director. "Phoenix became what it claimed to fight against: an unaccountable power operating beyond human values. There are better ways to protect humanity." Laura's team secured the lab, disarming remaining security personnel and establishing a defensive perimeter. "The transmission?" she asked Samuel. He checked the Eagle Key interface. 90% complete, archives transferring to multiple secure repositories simultaneously. "And Winterhawk?" "Deactivated," Samuel confirmed. The quantum protocols interrupted the activation sequence and initiated a component separation protocol. "It's non-functional now." James stood nearby, watching these exchanges with complex emotions playing across his face. Samuel approached his brother. "You have a choice," he said quietly. "Come with us. Help explain what Phoenix was, what it became. Be part of rebuilding something better: intelligence operations with proper oversight and accountability." James laughed bitterly. "You think it's that simple, that I can just walk away from decades of service, that anyone will believe I wasn't fully complicit?" "I believe you wanted to protect your country," Samuel said. "Just like I did. Like Albert did. We just disagreed about how." Another explosion rocked the facility, this one large enough to crack the reinforced walls of the lab. "This place is coming down," Laura warned. "Phoenix self-destruct protocols activated. We need to move now. Samuel, Kate called urgently. We have to go. Samuel held his brother's gaze. Last chance, James. Redemption or destruction. Your choice. For a long moment, James didn't respond. Then with a subtle nod, he moved toward the exit. What about him? Kate asked, indicating the wounded Harris. Bring him, Laura ordered two of her operators. He faces justice for his actions. They moved quickly through the deteriorating facility, following Laura's team through routes secured during their assault. The self-destruct sequence continued around them, controlled demolition charges, eliminating sensitive sections, while preventing catastrophic structural collapse that might attract external attention. As they reached the surface level, the first rays of dawn were breaking over the Nevada desert. Transport vehicles waited at a secure distance from the facility perimeter. Samuel paused, looking back at the outwardly unremarkable buildings that concealed so many secrets. Beneath the surface, decades of extra-constitutional operations were ending their documentation, spreading worldwide through Albert's quantum transmission network. Kate joined him, following his gaze. It's really over. Phoenixes, Samuel confirmed, but there's more. What Harris said about non-terrestrial entities, about them being here since 1947, that truth is still out there, still hidden. One battle at a time, Kate suggested, touching his arm gently. They boarded the transport vehicles, joining Laura's team for extraction. James sat silently, his expression unreadable, as he watched the facility, his life's work begin to collapse in carefully controlled destruction. As they drove away, Samuel's secure communication device activated. Diane's voice came through, excitement evident despite the encryption. Samuel, Kate, it's happening. The archives are appearing on media outlets worldwide. Major networks, international press, online platforms, all receiving authenticated document packages simultaneously. Phoenix exposure is complete. Laura nodded in satisfaction. Albert's plan worked perfectly. Even with their resources, Phoenix can't contain this level of simultaneous global disclosure. What happens now? Kate asked. Congress will convene emergency sessions, Laura predicted. Intelligence oversight committees will launch investigations. International partners will demand explanations. The political fallout will be enormous, but controlled precisely as Albert designed. And us, Samuel asked? We're still fugitives as far as official records show. Not for long, Laura assured him. The archives include complete documentation of the Belarus operation, how your analysis was altered, how you were framed. Your name will be cleared. Samuel absorbed this, 15 years of professional disgrace potentially reversed in an instant. He glanced at Kate, who offered a small smile of vindication. What about the non-terrestrial technology? James asked, suddenly breaking his silence. The public isn't ready for that truth. Albert thought of that too, Laura replied. The archives are compartmentalized, illegal human operations exposed immediately. The deeper truths about technology origins and non-terrestrial entities reserved for controlled disclosure after initial accountability is established. The desert landscape rolled past as they continued toward a secure extraction point. Samuel felt the weight of the past several days, the revelations, the dangers, the choices settling into perspective. Samuel, James said quietly, for his brother's ears only. About Mother, did Father really? Samuel met his brother's gaze, seeing genuine pain beneath the professional exterior. Yes, Albert had documentation, surveillance reports, internal memos. She discovered what Phoenix was doing, the human experimentation, the false flag operations, and threatened to expose it all. James closed his eyes briefly, absorbing this final betrayal. I believed in him, in everything he built. He believed in it too, Samuel offered. That's what made him dangerous. Conviction without accountability. The vehicles approached a small airfield hidden among desert rock formations. A modified cargo aircraft waited, engines already warming for immediate departure. As they prepared to board, Samuel noticed Laura having an intense conversation with one of her team members. She approached him with an expression of concern. We have a problem, she said. Satellite monitoring shows military units converging on this location. Someone in Phoenix Command managed to get a message out before communications went down. How long do we have? Samuel asked. 20 minutes, maybe less. Samuel turned to James. Did you alert them? Bandon, his brother shook his head. No, but Harris had protocols in place, dead man switches of his own. If he didn't enter specific codes at regular intervals, it would trigger automatic alerts to military commands outside the Phoenix communication network. "We need to move," Laura urged. "The aircraft is ready." As they boarded, Samuel felt a strange sense of symmetry. His uncle had fled in similar circumstances decades earlier, choosing exile over destruction. Now Samuel followed the same path, but with a crucial difference where Albert had disappeared with the truth Samuel had helped expose it. The aircraft lifted off just as the first military helicopters appeared on the horizon. Banking sharply, the pilot implemented countermeasures to mask their departure vector. Samuel found himself seated beside Kate, both of them watching through small windows as the Nevada desert fell away beneath them. "Where are we going?" he asked Laura, who was coordinating with her team. "Somewhere secure until the initial chaos settles," she replied. "A facility similar to Eagle's Nest but further off the grid. From there, we can monitor the global response to the Phoenix archives and determine next steps." "And after that?" Kate asked. Laura smiled faintly. "That's up to you, all of you." Her gaze included James, who sat silently across the cabin. "Albert's mission is complete. What comes next is a new chapter." Samuel felt Kate's hand find his, a simple gesture of connection amidst the uncertainty. He thought of the janitor he had been just days ago, the careful routines, the quiet resignation, the chest-night worry piece he carried as a reminder of what he'd lost. That life was gone, now swept away by revelations and choices that couldn't be undone. Ahead lay questions without easy answers. The Phoenix archives would expose decades of illegal operations, but the deeper truths about non-terrestrial technology, about competing interests using humanity as proxies, remain largely hidden, waiting for the right moment. As the aircraft continued its ascent, banking northward toward destinations unknown, Samuel thought of Albert's final message. Time reveals all secrets. Some had been revealed, others still waited. And now, for the first time in 15 years, Samuel had a purpose worthy of his abilities, not just exposing the past, but helping shape what came next. Kate squeezed his hand gently. "What are you thinking about?" Samuel met her gaze, seeing in her eyes the same mix of uncertainty and determination he felt. "The future," he said simply, "and how different it looks now." She nodded, understanding in her expression. "Better or worse?" Samuel glanced around the aircraft cabin at James, wrestling with shattered beliefs, at Laura, coordinating the response to a global revelation, at the tactical team that had risked everything to help them succeed. "Different," he repeated, "but with better possibilities." The aircraft continued northward, carrying them toward whatever came next in this generations-long shadow war, a war that had just entered a new phase with new players and new stakes. Samuel Reeves, once NSA's brilliant analyst, then a struggling janitor, now something else entirely, perhaps finally his uncle's true successor. 6 months later, a crisp autumn wind scattered golden leaves across the immaculately maintained grounds of Arlington National Cemetery. Samuel Reeves knelt beside a simple headstone recently installed despite the absence of remains beneath it. The marker read, "Albert Reeves, Captain, United States Air Force, 1935-2023, Patriot Guardian Hero." Though his body was never recovered, Albert's service record had been posthumously corrected. His status changed from missing presumed defected to honorable service with distinction. One of many wrongs righted in the wake of the Phoenix revelations. Samuel placed a small eagle figurine at the base of the headstone, a private acknowledgement between uncle and nephew, mission commander and field operative. The morning sun glinted off its metallic wings, a symbol of truth finally taking flight. "He would have appreciated the irony," Kate said, approaching from behind. She wore a dark pantsuit, her NSA credentials visible on her belt. "Honored at Arlington after decades being labeled a traitor." Samuel stood, brushing leaves from his knees. He never cared about recognition, just that the truth would eventually come out. "And it has," Kate gestured toward the Washington Monument visible in the distance. "The congressional hearings enter their 5th month tomorrow. Phoenix leadership continues to fall like dominoes." They walked together along the peaceful rows of white markers, a stark contrast to the institutional chaos unfolding across the Potomac. The Phoenix archives had hit the global intelligence community like a tsunami, exposing decades of unauthorized operations, illegal experimentation, and constitutional violations that crossed presidential administrations and political parties. "How's the new position?" Samuel asked as they reached Kate's government vehicle. She smiled, a genuine expression that reached her eyes. Deputy Director of Oversight and Compliance is a mouthful, but it has its advantages. Real authority to implement structural reforms. Though not everyone appreciates having a whistleblower promoted to leadership. They'll adjust, Samuel replied, or retire. What about you adjusted to civilian consultant status? Samuel considered the question as they drove toward the city. His official rehabilitation had been swift. Once the Phoenix archives were authenticated, his NSA record corrected his analysis of the Belarus incident vindicated. The Congressional Intelligence Committees had immediately recruited him as an expert witness and consultant on Phoenix operations. It's strange, he admitted, testifying instead of analyzing, being in the spotlight after 15 years of invisibility. You're good at it, too, Kate observed. Clear, precise, unintimidated by political pressure. The C-SPAN clips of you shutting down Senator Hargrove's deflections went viral. Samuel smiled faintly. Not exactly what I expected from my return to intelligence work. They crossed the Potomac, Washington's monuments gleaming in the morning light. The city continued its rhythms despite the institutional earthquakes of the past months, perhaps because American democracy had weathered similar revelations before, from Watergate to Iran-Contra to post-9/11 surveillance. Each crisis followed by reform, by recommitment to foundational principles. Have you heard from James? Kate asked as they approached the Hart Senate office building. Samuel nodded. Weekly calls. His cooperation has been comprehensive. His brother's choice to testify against Phoenix leadership had surprised many but not Samuel. Once the initial shock of their father's crimes had worn off, James had approached his new role with the same methodical precision he'd applied to Phoenix operations, providing detailed testimony on organizational structure, operational protocols, and leadership decisions. The sentencing recommendation comes down today, Kate noted. Reduced charges in exchange for cooperation, Samuel confirmed. No prison time, but permanent prohibition from classified work. Fair, Samuel considered this. Justice is rarely perfect, but he's chosen accountability finally. That counts for something. And they passed through security and headed to the committee room where today's hearing would soon begin. Staff members hurried about preparing documents and checking recording equipment. Several nodded respectfully to Samuel, the janitor turned whistleblower, now a familiar figure in the halls of congressional oversight. In a quiet anteroom, they found Diane Cooper reviewing her prepared testimony. The history teacher looked up with a smile, her formerly injured shoulder now fully healed. Ready for round 3, she asked, indicating her extensive notes. Your historical context testimony has been crucial, Samuel told her. Connecting Phoenix to earlier extra-constitutional operations gives the committee perspective they desperately need. Speaking of perspective, Kate interjected, checking her phone. Laura just sent an update. The Montana facility is secure and the Eagle Key remains under protection. Samuel nodded, relieved. While much of Phoenix's operations had been exposed, certain technologies, particularly those of non-terrestrial origin, remained secured from public disclosure. A careful balance between transparency and preventing global panic about the implications of Albert's most explosive discoveries. A staff member appeared at the door. 10 minutes, Ms. Cooper. As Diane gathered her materials, Samuel's phone vibrated with an incoming message. The screen showed a secure communication from Montana from Lorimar and the Sparrow Network. Interesting, he murmured, reading the text. What is it? Kate asked. They've decoded more of Albert's quantum storage archives, found references to additional Phoenix facilities we haven't yet located. And, he hesitated, potential evidence of ongoing non-terrestrial presence in remote locations. Kate raised an eyebrow. Above our current clearance. For now, Samuel agreed, one revelation at a time. The hearing proceeded with the now familiar rhythm of congressional investigations, opening statements, witness testimony, pointed questions from committee members seeking sound bites for evening news. Samuel testified about Phoenix financial structures, how black budget allocations had been concealed through sophisticated accounting mechanisms spanning multiple federal agencies. Afterward, as they left the Capitol complex, Samuel noticed a small group of high school students on a field trip gathered around their teacher as she explained the functions of government. It reminded him of Liberty High, of the hallways he had meticulously maintained while carrying the weight of his secret past. Miss them? Kate asked, following his gaze. Sometimes, Samuel admitted, there was a simplicity to that life. Visible results, clean floors, No congressional hearings or existential questions about non-terrestrial intelligence. We could go back, she suggested, only half joking. I could teach history. You could mop floors. Pretend none of this ever happened. Samuel smiled, shaking his head. Some bells can't be unrung. They drove to a small cafe near the National Mall, a quiet place where they could talk without concern about being overheard. It had become their regular spot over the past months, a neutral ground between Kate's NSA offices and Samuel's consulting work. I've been thinking, Kate said as they settled at their usual corner table, about what comes next, after the hearings end, after the reforms are implemented. Assuming they are implemented, Samuel noted, they will be, oh, Kate replied with conviction. This time is different. The exposure was too complete, too well documented to be buried or minimized. Thanks to Albert. And to you. Kate reached across the table, taking his hand. You completed what he started, made the hard choices when it mattered. Samuel accepted the compliment with a slight nod. Their relationship had evolved over the past months, professional respect deepening into something more personal. The shared experience of exposing Phoenix, of facing danger together, had created a bond that transcended ordinary connections. I've been offered a position, he said after a moment, heading a new independent oversight body for intelligence operations, reporting directly to a bipartisan congressional committee with full access to classified programs across all agencies. Kate's eyes widened. The Intelligence Accountability Commission, that's still in the planning stages. Apparently not. The charter is being finalized. They want someone with both analytical skills and proven commitment to constitutional boundaries. Someone who was right about Belarus, Kate added. Someone who helped expose Phoenix. Samuel nodded. It would mean staying in Washington, building something new from the ashes of what we exposed. You'll take it, Kate said. Not a question, but a statement of certainty. I'm considering it. Kate smiled. Samuel Reeves, you've been considering it since the moment they offered it. It's exactly what you've wanted, a chance to ensure no one else suffers what you experienced, what Albert experienced. He returned her smile, acknowledging the truth in her assessment. What about you, planning to stay at NSA? For now, the reforms need internal champions as much as external oversight. She hesitated. Though the commute between our offices would be manageable, the implication hung in the air between them, a future together professionally and personally. Before Samuel could respond, his secure phone chimed again. Montana, Kate asked. Samuel checked the message, his expression growing serious. James, the sentencing recommendation came through. He's been cleared of the most serious charges, but he'll never work in intelligence again. Permanent restrictions on travel communications, financial transactions, a gilded cage, essentially. Kate considered this. Given what Phoenix did, what he was part of, it could have been much worse. I know, Samuel agreed, and he knows it too. He tucked the phone away. He wants to meet. Says he has information about our mother that wasn't in the archives. Will you go? Samuel nodded slowly. Family remains family even after everything. Albert never gave up on James, on the possibility of redemption. I won't either. Their conversation was interrupted by breaking news alerts on both their phones simultaneously. Turning to the cafe's television, they saw a special bulletin. Another cache of Phoenix documents had been released, these revealing connections between Phoenix operations and private defense contractors who had profited from manipulated intelligence. The ripples continue to spread, Kate observed. And will for years, Samuel agreed. Phoenix was embedded too deeply to be extracted without pain. As they watched the news unfold, Samuel thought about the journey that had brought him here, from NSA analyst to disgraced janitor to whistleblower to potential commission chairman. A path he never would have chosen but couldn't now imagine differently. Later that evening, Samuel stood on the balcony of his apartment, looking out over the Washington skyline. The lights of the Capitol glowed in the gathering darkness, symbols of the democracy Phoenix had operated beyond for decades. His phone rang. Laura Connor, calling from the Montana facility. Samuel, her voice carried the calm assurance he'd come to associate with Aya. We've made progress with the quantum storage device. Found something I think you should see. More Phoenix operations? Something else entirely, Laura replied. Remember what Albert said about competing non-terrestrial interests? We've found documentation of direct contact events, not just crash recoveries, but intentional communication. Samuel absorbed this, the implications expanding in his mind. When can I see it? That's why I'm calling. We need you back at the facility. Some things shouldn't be transmitted, even on secure channels. After ending the call, Samuel returned to his living room where Kate waited, having arrived for their planned dinner. Montana, she asked, recognizing his expression. Albert left more breadcrumbs, he confirmed. About our visitors, about direct contact protocols. Kate nodded thoughtfully. The next chapter. It seems so, Samuel agreed. The Phoenix story is ending, but Albert's legacy continues. The eagle still flies. When do we leave? Kate asked without hesitation. Samuel smiled, grateful for her unwavering partnership. Tomorrow morning, Laura's sending transportation. As they prepared dinner together in comfortable domesticity, Samuel found himself thinking of Albert again, the uncle he'd barely known who had shaped his life so profoundly, who had trusted him with truths that spanned generations and perhaps worlds. In Arlington, the small eagle figurine remained at the base of Albert's headstone, a silent guardian of memory and promise. And in Montana, secured deep within the mountain facility, the eagle key waited, its quantum secrets, still partially unknown, its connection to non-terrestrial technology still not fully understood. The janitor who had exposed America's darkest intelligence operation now stood at the threshold of an even greater revelation. But this time he wouldn't face it alone. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new discoveries, perhaps new dangers. But tonight, in this moment of hard-won peace, Samuel Reeves, analyst, whistleblower, nephew partner, allowed himself to simply be present, to acknowledge how far he had come and to appreciate the unexpected gifts his journey had brought. The eagle would fly again tomorrow. Tonight was for remembering why the flight mattered at all,